hierarchy of effects. What this basically is you guiding your audience through a journey. Now, this has been around for quite some time. I want you to understand that in marketing, or the hierarchy of effects, there are essentially 6 steps from a person viewing a product advertisement or seeing something related to you, your personal brand, whatever way you want to take it, all the way up until the point of making a purchase. And what those 6 steps are awareness, knowledge, liking, preference, conviction, and purchase. I want you to understand what this basically is consumer behavior. So you've probably heard this, I guess, technical word in marketing or sales, consumer behavior. And essentially what you can do is break this into 3 particular behavior traits, right? So you have cognitive behavior, which is basically to think, understand, and remember. And those are the first 2 of the 6 steps. So awareness and knowledge. It's all based on cognitive behavior. Then moving on from that, you have affective behavior, right? Which is how you feel and how you experience things. Then we have the third consumer behavior, which is cognitive behavior, which is basically the thing that I'm always pushing students to do, which is take action, right? It's to behave and to take an action, which is conviction and purchase, right? So the 6 steps from a person seeing some type of advertisement, I'm going to use advertisements as the concept here. You can apply that to whatever it is you want to apply in your marketing campaign or your sales campaign, whatever you're doing. Is awareness, knowledge, which is a cognitive behavior. And you can tell that by the way the words are, right? Awareness and knowledge. That's to do with the brain, right? How we think, how we understand, how we remember things. And then you have affective behavior, liking and preference. And then you have cognitive behavior, which is conviction and purchase. So let me kind of break these down for you. So awareness, what is awareness? Well, you make a customer aware. Really simple. Knowledge is make information about the product easy to find. That's extremely important. Number 3, which is liking, is ensure the customer likes your product. That goes without saying, geez, you want to try and build or create a great product. This is part and parcel one of the ones that people get lost in, right? Because you commonly find that people spend a huge amount of time creating a great product, making a great product, or service in this case, and they get lost on the fact that they haven't created no awareness or any knowledge about what the product is. Then you have preference, right? So you make customers or consumers focus on the actual product. So you can think about USPs in this case, like what's the features and stuff like that. Then you have conviction. Conviction is when you create the desire to purchase, right? And then of course, number 6, the one that we all get happy about, is when the consumer purchases the product or the service. Now, I want you to understand, like, this model can be used and has been used in a plethora of different circumstances. So let's take awareness for a second. Well, we've got social media, we've got people building personal brands, we've got people running advertisements. And that is one of the key things about when people talk, social media has changed the whole landscape of sales and marketing. It is genuinely because of that awareness perspective, right? We have all these tools that allow us to create awareness about our brand, about our product, about our service, right? And Eddie's asking, what's the height of the graph represent? I would say, and this is me more kind of just creating a way to show this visually, but I basically put this on a scale of time, right? And over time, the more touch points, so the more awareness, knowledge, liking, preference, conviction that a person has, is the more likelihood of them purchasing, right? So you've heard this all before, 7 touch points in marketing. In this case, we're talking about 6 steps. But usually the more kind of interaction that a consumer has had, the more likely their behavior is going to lead to cognitive behavior, which is taking action, right? So let's take another example here, knowledge, right? Making knowledge easy to find. An example of this is getting someone to subscribe to a newsletter, right? Because if they subscribe to a newsletter, you're going to make sure that your newsletter has value. You provide that value into their email and it's easy to find, right? So that's another example of that. Liking, preference, we could talk about social proof. We could talk about how I've commonly mentioned how UGC has really taken off because it's a way to show that other consumers like this product. Therefore, people trust that and bring credibility into that. You can also think about things like free value, right? When you provide a prospect or a prospective client, you provide them a free value and they like that. That's liking, right? And then you dial it into their preference and maybe you show that this product or this service that you're offering is the only thing for them. Well, now you're creating a feeling and experience for them, right? Which ends up taking the consumer from a cognitive behavior into an effective behavior, okay? And then obviously you've got conviction, which is like, again, doubling down on this is the only thing for you that can solve whatever pain point or problem you're trying to aim for. And then you're going to get them to act, you call to action, right? So I'm going to pause there for a second before I get into the prompt and just see what questions are here. So we've got White Boy Habib who says, isn't 3 and 5 the same sort of thing? So you got liking and conviction. No, they're not. So I'm assuming that question came before I kind of explained some of the examples there. Remember, we're talking about behavior, consumer behavior. Conviction is taking action, right? It's how a person behaves. I want you all to recognize this. Every single one of you, including me, are consumers. How many times have you thought you want to buy something and then you've done a whole in-depth level of research? You may have even gone at YouTube reviews. Certain things have then compelled you, right? They've made you like. You've felt the experience of others. You've got a preference towards a particular product in that lineup, right? So for example, I'm going to use nose strips as an example because for some reason I've been looking at them recently and there are multiple nose strip products out there. But I've seen enough reviews to enter a realm of effective behavior where I now feel, and I've taken experiences from others to say that this one particular brand, which is a magnetic nose, breathers, that I'm going to go and purchase. And now I have conviction. I'm definitely purchasing it, right? So it's very, very different. There's a very massive difference between me liking something and then having conviction. Extremely, extremely important there. All right, okay, so the prompt. Remember, geez, what I said on the previous masterclass? You need to recognize that I give you the concept, I give you the understanding, the model, and I also give you the prompt, but you have to deduce how is this applicable to whatever it is you're trying to achieve, right? So use this prompt, the role. You are a marketing strategist specializing in the hierarchy of effects model. Instructions: create a marketing campaign outlining the appeals to the needs of the busy professionals by following the 6 stages And a better way to kind of tweak that prompt there is actually write the 6 stages. So I would probably change the instructions to create a marketing campaign outline that appeals to the needs of busy professionals by following the 6 stages: awareness, knowledge, liking, preference, conviction, and purchase, right? So then you want to lead the prompt into steps. Number 1, create awareness of the product or service. Number 2, build interest, generate desire, and encourage action. Extremely important there. All right, okay, next one is the goal, which is build momentum and encourage conversions. Narrowing, ensure each stage aligns with corresponding messaging and offers, right? Okay, so for example, I want you to understand, if I look at the hierarchy of effects, I commonly use this in ads that we create, right? I use this in the ads that we create. So where we have like awareness and knowledge, and I call that cognitive behavior, like I commonly use that as the hook, right? Our hooks are very like broad. Like you never hear any of our hooks go straight in with like, oh, the real world, right? Our hooks are very broad. We talk about things that people are starting to become aware about. So for example, you are acquiring university debt and you're not getting the skills that are going to allow you to make money. That's very broad, right? But that's something that people are generally aware of. And then we get into kind of the knowledge. I'm more tapping into kind of the cognitive behavior of a consumer, right? I'm trying to tap into that thinking part or that understanding part or remembering a certain situation, right? Further into the adverts that we do, I tend to go into the effective behavior of a consumer by showing social proof, right? What other students are doing in the real world and they're making a huge amount of money, right? And then the conviction and purchase part comes with the call to action. And I've done a whole masterclass call on how I really amp up the call to action using music, using hard cuts and driving energy, all that type of stuff. Make sure you go and check that masterclass call out, right? So that's like a prime example of how I've used the hierarchy of effects in my work. And for you, it might be completely different, right? Like some of you might be working with a client who has a product, and at this moment, you're currently just video editing. And maybe you want to take that step up and you want to start creating ads for one of their products, and you want to negotiate yourself into a performance pay, right? So maybe you need to go down the route of, okay, I'm going to run through a whole hierarchy of effects, create a whole campaign around their product, create all these ads, and then upsell it to them, right? This is an important note I'm going to stop on, which is, many of you think that free value stops at the point of obtaining a client. It doesn't. Free value never stops. So if I look back to all of the upsells that I've done with Tate, I want you to remember, I initially started as just the advertisement guy who would create ads for Tate. The upsell then went into, okay, I can create all of the content for the whole of the real world, everything that the professors are doing, right? But that didn't actually start with me just pitching that as an upsell because I thought, okay, now I've got Tate with me as a client. No, I just started doing it. I actually was doing it as free value, right? And then that then led into AI services, that led into design services, and it was always the same. It was always free value up front. And I was using these exact sales models and psychological sales models that I'm giving you all the way through to where I am now, right? Different ones for different scenarios, creating different campaigns, doing different things in the background, right? So I hope that makes sense. All right, let's get into the juicy one, the one that I've been actually excited to talk about. Effective forecasting. Now, this took me a while to kind of try and piece together. I'm going to try my best to explain it because realistically, we could just say what effective forecasting is, and I'm yet to come across somebody who's truly tried to break this down, and I've done that, right? And I've actually got in the bottom left-hand corner, it says, NB, this is all conceptual. Nobody can predict the future. So what's effective forecasting? So basically, effective forecasting is on the principle that emotions drive decisions. We all should recognize that, right? As much as the Stoics who are listening thinking, we got to control our emotions and stuff like that, I want you to realize that when you make decisions, every single decision that has been made across the entirety of the human race has always been because some type of emotion was evoked, right? So effective forecasting is when emotions drive decisions. And therefore, if we understand this, right, predicting how future events will make people feel can lead to more sales. I'm taking a huge pause there. I want you to recognize what I've just said. Effective forecasting is basically us saying that we know emotions drive decisions. And therefore, if we know emotions drive decisions, if we can control somebody's emotions at the front face of something, then we could probably predict what they're going to do after they've had that certain emotion ignite. I'm saying that emotions drive all decisions. And therefore, if we can control the emotions, aka the input, which I'm going to get into, therefore, we can kind of predict the type of output we're going to get, which for us is to buy more sales. Get more sales or get them to buy and get us more sales, right? Okay, so somebody says real examples, and that's the part that is difficult here, right? Because effective forecasting is predictive. And predictive, as much as people think they can explain it, it's all waffle. So what I've tried to do is create something extremely logical here, and I'm super excited to talk about this with you lot because this is a conversation that from an advertising perspective, me, Luke, and even Tate, we've discussed in depth because it is effective forecasting. Let me try and explain it to you, right? So I've got input on the left-hand side, right? And then I've got output on the right-hand side of this graph or the diagram that you're looking at, right? And then I've got two lines running across. So your input, something's going to happen and it's going to lead to an output, right? Now, let's take the kind of, I don't know what they are. They were supposed to be cogs, right? But they ain't. But let's just say you've got an affective system, you've got a cognitive system, and you've got subjective experiences, right? And those are like cogs all moving around. And I'm starting towards the output section, and you'll understand why. So think about it, right? Every single one of you, every person, every consumer has a cognitive system, which again, if you remember what we discussed earlier about consumer behaviors, every single person has memories, or if you put some type of visual out there, you're evoking the cognitive system, right? The brain. Then everybody has like an affective system, which is the emotions, right? The way that somebody feels. And Again, back to consumer behavior. And then you have subjective experiences. I'm going to leave subjective experiences there for a second. I'm going to move back. I'm going to go all the way back to input. So remember, we're talking about emotions drive decisions, right? If your input can affect sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste, then what you're ultimately doing is you're controlling the sensory perception of someone. You're also controlling the cognitive perception of someone, which feeds into those cogs that I talked about earlier, the cognitive system and the affective system, which then also feeds into subjective experiences and then provides an output, right? So the output that I want is for someone to buy. Therefore, I need to find a way to control the inputs. And I'm going to give you an example right now, and I'm going to loop it back into why me and Tate Luke have talked about this in depth, like as a conceptual standpoint. And there's certain things that we can't yet unlock, and when they do unlock, it's going to be a game changer. So I'm going to take ads again. So if my input is the ad, what are the things that I can control? Does anyone know? I can control sight and hearing, right? I know that if I create some type of emotion, right, and I usually go for sense of urgency, I go for FOMO, I go for curiosity, these type of things, and I do that through sight and hearing, I know that I am tapping into the cognitive system and the affective system of a consumer, right? Now, subjective experiences, we can't control that of a consumer, right? That is based on what a consumer has been through in their life. And eventually, us turning those wheels or turning those cogs of cognitive system, a person's cognitive system, a person's affective system, hopefully the subjective experiences are correct, or they've had certain experiences that lead them to buy, right? And it all starts with the input that we're using, and the elements that we can control is sight and hearing. Now, the conversation that we've had conceptually is, what about the day or the time that comes that allows us to create ads, that allows us to control touch, right? You know, holograms, stuff like that. Allows us to control smell, how somebody smells something, and allows us how they control taste, right? Now, taste might not necessarily be in there. However, I mean, if I really start to think conceptually, we can talk about the taste of money, right? The smell of money, right? Or the smell of something new. And I'm truly waiting for those, I guess, sensory perceptions to become available. Because once those sensory perceptions become available, I can create something, an input, an advert that will spark the cognitive perception of something, right? Let's just say it's about making money, right? So I'm going to create ads all about, hey, you can make money if you do X, Y, and Z, if you take X, Y, and Z actions. We have so much social proof, all the good things from an ad, right? But let's just say all of a sudden I can start bringing in touch, the feel of like maybe somebody who's broke, who is struggling out there, has never felt what 10K cash actually feels like, right? 10K cash in their hands. Or maybe never really smell what the new interior of a Bugatti feels like, or smells like, sorry, right? Do you see where I'm going? Taste. Maybe they've never tasted what a $1,000 steak tastes like. And if I can start piecing these as inputs, all of a sudden I can do effective forecasting, right? Because I now know that I'm controlling every single emotion on the board. Therefore, the decisions or the output that I'm looking for is for them to buy is going to go skyrocket, it's going to go out the roof. Yeah? And this is the best way I could try and explain this to you lot, because I can't really find anything, right? I've seen a few things. I basically took this model and I looked at it and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what me and Luke were talking about, Ante. Like the time when we are able to create content or create ads, create advertisements with touch, smell, and taste, right? And then I put the value equation underneath there, which you all should be familiar with. So dream outcome times perceived likelihood of achievement over time delay times effort and sacrifice is how you gauge value, right? Now, if we look at effective forecasting, what are we basically doing here? Like, because look, geez, when somebody's trying to deduce the value that they output in, perceived likelihood of achievement, I would call that social proof, right? If I can get enough people say that they've made 10K in the space of 30 days, then the perceived likelihood of achievement goes up, right? I can make 10K in 30 days. All of these people have done it, right? And that also has a double barrel kind of W, because the time delay is 30 days now, right? And then effort and sacrifice. For me, I don't necessarily think I like to go down the route of bumping down the effort and sacrifice. Like, I like people to know that this is hard work. Like, I genuinely want people who come into the real world to know that it is hard work. And the people that are absolutely crushing it, the, you know, stupid amount of students that are killing it, they've put a lot of effort and sacrifice in. But let's just say, for the sake of, you know, just purely advertising, marketing, and sales, I want to bump the effort and sacrifice to fucking nothing, right? And we could really double down on like meme coin winners, and they did fuck all just through, you know, 0.5 SAL on a meme coin and they went to the fucking moon because of a professor's call. Then I can really kind of drive the effort and sacrifice to zero. Now, that helps me in all those other three perspectives and gives me value. But dream outcome, I've never really had variables that allow me to control the dream outcome. You're always guessing what somebody's dream outcome is, right? Let's double down in that conceptually. If I do enough of my ads for visually for them to see charts, right? Crypto charts going up, or I create enough hearing of like, you're broke, you're this, then somewhere along this kind of effective forecasting, I can believe the output is I'm targeting people in the crypto space, and it's very likely they're going to buy because I can control those two factors, right? And that's my kind of dream outcome. I can't really pinpoint it down, right? But if all of a sudden I can include touch, smell, taste, and I really have all of these elements under control, then I know that I can really tailor everything. Like, I really can tailor everything. If I've got a product that I'm trying to sell, and let's just say that product is, I don't know, we could use nose strips again, for example. If I really, really could tailor in the visual of how it looks on someone's nose, hearing, I guess, maybe someone, a reaction from a partner or spouse of when they have this kind of magnetic nose strip on their nose, touch, what it kind of feels like on their nose, the smell, I guess, like the improvement of the smell because it unblocks airways or stuff like that, and improvement in taste, right? If I can control all of those variables, then I know the output is I'm going to get someone to buy, right? The dream outcome, boom. I've got that unlock. And anyways, look, geez, I put a NB there. This is all conceptual. Nobody can predict the future, right? But it's a really, really great way for me to explain to you lot how emotions drive decisions. And that effective forecasting basically is you saying to yourself is, if I have enough variables to control, like I can predict future events and how people will feel, right? Like if I can make them feel, and you know what, I'm going to say it how it is. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it how it is. I just something popped in my head. Charity ads. Has anyone seen charity ads? Charity ads do this amazingly. It's just come on the top of my head. Charity ads do this fucking absolutely gangster, right? Because they pull on the emotions of, you know, people in the bad state that they are, and then eventually the output that they want is for you to sign up to their charity, right? And they use that through sight and hearing. Imagine the day they can get touch, smell, and taste, right? Super important. Really, really great, I guess, concept we've kind of created there. If anyone's got any questions, let's go ahead and take them. I'm all down for exploring this concept that I'm talking about here. Even that kind of, I guess, connection between dream outcome and output of the top graph. I'm still kind of like, can you really control the dream outcome? Can you kind of like, okay, I'm creating something that's completely value add for a particular group of people and understanding what their dream outcome is. Like if I could truly understand, like, what's the actual dream outcome of a person who wants to get rich off crypto, right? What are the inputs I need to control to make that happen? And then part of me also says in this whole thing, right, the subjective experience part, which you can see is like that bottom cog. Bro, I don't even know. They don't even look like cogs, but whatever, right? They're like jigsaws. But that bottom subjective experience, that's really difficult. Like no one can control that, right? No one can control that because as much as I might want to sell crypto or something I'm doing in the crypto space as an example, their experiences might be fucking horrible. They might have like, you know, signed up to millions of different courses, have fucking weirdos telling them what to do, lost a shit ton of money. I don't know that. I think that's one variable that you can never change. And I guess that's why it'll always be forecasting and never like a concrete, like this is what I'm going to fucking get back, right? So Mix says, I'm trying to understand what does the words cognitive and effective mean? And G, like, this is the aim of you lot paying attention all the way through. Remember the hierarchy of effects I talked to you about? This is consumer behavior. So cognitive behavior is to think, understand, and remember. It's about the brain, right? And effective behavior or effective system in someone's mind is the feeling and experience that they get. I hope that makes sense. So Eddie AI says, maybe you can have a target audience and by know that group of people and what they like, you can tailor that. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm using the example of ads, but really this could be anything, right? If your input is to buy a particular product, which is why I use that kind of magnetic nose strip as an example, like you want people to buy that, right? Well, what are all the inputs you've got to control? If you're trying to tap them on an emotional level and drive their decision to buy, then you've got to look at the inputs that you can control, right? And right now through the online space, it's just sight and hearing, right? So I don't know, is there some type of marketing campaign where you can get touch, smell, and taste in both? You know, really, really important there. All right, okay. So geez, we're gonna move on to the prompt here. So use this prompt. Role, you are a marketing strategist focusing on effective forecasting. Instructions, write down a marketing campaign that appeals to the emotions and desires of busy professionals by highlighting positive outcomes and experiences. Steps. Number 1, highlight positive outcomes and experiences. Number 2, use language that helps them visualize benefiting from the product/service. Number 3, provide clear and compelling messaging. Goal, connect emotionally with the audience and encourage action. Narrowing, ensure the language is vivid and emotionally engaging. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a trick here, because a lot of you won't be able to make the connection between, okay, this is what I do, or this is what I'm trying to get someone to do, and I want to use X, Y, and Z psychological sales models, right? Let's just say you want to use forecasting. A lot of you won't be able to make that or use that brain power and figure out, well, how would I actually match pair these two? How do I match pair my product, my service to this psychological model, sales model? Well, the great thing about ChatGPT or any GPT or large language model, which is good enough, like Claude is pretty decent as well, you don't have to. Just literally tell the large language model, this is what you do, this is the product you sell, this is the service you offer, this is all the different things, and literally say to it, hey, I want to use this psychological sales principle to help me get more sales, and then follow up with the prompt that I've given you, and it'll do all the thinking for you. I mean, it's always better to apply your own brain, because I don't really believe like the large language models can really get down to the level of creativity you can if you truly put your brain into this. But that's like a bit of a, I guess, starter pack. Let's call it that. Right, G's? I hope you enjoyed part 2 of this masterclass. Part 3 is going to be an absolute monster masterclass, because I'm going to try my best to go through the social proof principle, credibility principle, scarcity versus abundance principle, confirmation bias, and endowment effect. That's a lot to cover in one masterclass. I'm going to make sure I put all my notes together. It might take me at least 48 hours to get all that down. And part 3 is going to be a very lengthy one compared to today. Today's only been 45 minutes. Yesterday's one was 30 minutes. I think the interaction between me and you lot has allowed this call to be a lot, I guess, slightly longer and a lot more informative. Part 3 will be a monster one. So make sure you're all ready for that. I don't think it'll be tomorrow. It might be on a Sunday. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, G's, you can appreciate why I started to do masterclass calls, especially with the last topic we just discussed. It is about these conceptual theories and understanding. And I want you lot to really recognize this. You hear the word masterclass float around everywhere. You hear it being floated by, I guess, other platforms, competitors of ours. You hear it floated by other campuses, right? We always have this inter-campus competitiveness between the professors, as much as we love each other. I really stand on concrete with this. What is an actual masterclass? An actual masterclass is when you're deep diving conceptual things based on understanding you have of things already in order to always try and put yourself ahead of the curve. So for example, G's, you all know that the moment something like taste, smell comes into play through online connection, I'm going to be all over it. I'm going to be all over it. I'm ready to start to explore these things at a masterclass level. And that's what a masterclass is, G's. A masterclass is not a spoon-fed piece of information. God bless and peace, G's. I hope you have a great Friday evening. Make sure you recharge. If any of you are feeling a type of way about it's Friday, everybody else is enjoying themselves, X, Y, and Z, do not fear, G's. I promise you, these are the moments that are going to make you succeed. Social proof principle. A lot of you should be familiar with this. It's something that I commonly preach in this campus all the time. I think social proof is an extremely, extremely good way in terms of creating ads, in terms of running campaigns, in terms of any sales that you're getting involved in, right? Because at the end of the day, people follow trends, crowds, and other people. I want you to understand this. It does not matter what you believe you stand on, like break the matrix, free the matrix, or anything along these lines. Ultimately, at the very granular level, if other people are doing it, commonly you'll get involved. If you're seeing other people have some type of success or achieve whatever it is the statement that the campaign is trying to do, most people will resonate with that, right? It's a genuine social psychological model, right? Because the concept and the one that I tend to double down on, I think is one of the most effective. The main one out of them is called the bandwagon, right? And it's the bandwagon effect. You can go ahead and research that. But basically, that states that people are more likely to engage in action if other people are doing it, right? And that's where trends come from. So I've created this a straight line with shapes or whatever it is you want to call them, but I want you to think of those as actual people, right? So each one of these squares that you can see colored squares, you can see question marks, and you can see circles, right? I want you to acknowledge that, and you know what? I might just go ahead and write this here so you lot can see. Let's put this as point B and put this as point A, right? So you should have seen me just write that on the screen right now. So at point B, the people moving from right to left, that are all shaded, or like I've done a scribble there, those are all the people that understand what they're getting from point B. Like once they get to point B, they're obtaining something, whether it's information, it could be anything, whatever it is, right? At point B, they're obtaining something. And all of those people who are shaded in know what they're obtaining, right? Everyone with a question mark kind of knows what's going on. They don't really know exactly what's at point B, and everyone in a circle is absolutely clueless. Let me explain this to you. So this kind of warrants the meme that some of you might have seen. So if you see I've highlighted the very first circle, and the question is there, what is this line for? Question mark. And then underneath that, you got someone with who's represented as a question mark highlighted saying, I don't know, but everyone is standing here, so I figured it must be good. And I'm telling you, that is the social principle. It's extremely, extremely important you acknowledge this, because you actually see this quite commonly where there is some type of event, or maybe there's some type of like giveaway at a shop. Any of you who've been around to like retail places and you see a queue, I promise you, the people towards the back end of the queue rarely know what the fuck they're even queuing up for. They just believe that there's a queue here. That means there's something good or something worth waiting for because of the social proof principle. And let's even take the idea of retail shopping or anything out of the equation. If you've ever been in a scenario where all of a sudden you start to see a huge amount of people start to gather in one place, without you even realizing it, you'll start walking towards that to find out what's going on. And if it's a massive crowd, like a huge, huge crowd, right at the pinnacle of whatever something is happening, those people can see what's going on. But everyone else, as you move further and further back, don't actually know what the fuck's going on. Something over there is happening, and it must be amazing, because why else would all these people be here? And that's the social proof principle. So it's one of the core principles that I use in my ads, and of course you lot can use it as well. I strongly recommend that if you're working with a client, or you have your own product, and it really does what it says it does, right? TRW genuinely changes people's lives. It genuinely has affected so many students. It's taken them from having absolutely no money to making money, right? So I get all the social proof that I need every single day. Every time someone posts a win, for me, that's a social proof principle. And if you have a product now and you're selling it on an e-com, or you have a client who's selling some sort of product, you want to try your very best to find the social proof, right? Because if you can just layer up so many people saying that this works, then the social proof principle will come into effect. People will just be like, okay, well, there's so many people in here or doing this, I'm just going to follow. And it's the bandwagon effect, right? My wife, right, when we do have our date nights and stuff like that, we'll always go and try somewhere new or fancy or whatever it is. And I have this kind of saying, when she asks me, how was it, right? Like as in when we're eating the food or trying the food out, I'll say, another one of your Instagram hypes. Because the food was shit, the ambiance was shit, overrated, I didn't really enjoy it. Maybe it's just me, I don't like going out, I like working. Maybe that could be the case as well. But I have that kind of saying because what I'm basically saying to her is, we only came here on your recommendation because of the social proof principle. So many people on Instagram, oh, you get all these influencers, it's so amazing, this place, the food's great, blah, 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 right? It looks amazing, and actually go there, it's fucking shit. But it's a social proof principle, it works. It genuinely works. Like, if someone like me who understands sales and marketing to this level of depth still goes and follows to see what's up, it comes down to the fact that I want you to recognize there's not a single person that doesn't, at the end of the day, follow trends, crowds, and other people. Even I do this, G's. And it's funny enough, I was actually in a supermarket, I think 2 or 3 days ago, and I was getting some milk for the children, and there was just this massive crowd, in the complete opposite direction of where the milk was, right? And I'm trying to be super fast. I'm like, I've got to get in, get my milk, get the fuck out of here, and get straight back to my work desk and start working again. And boom. But I was automatically drawn to that crowd, right? I actually started moving in that direction. I could hear some shouting, some screaming, all that type of stuff. And I genuinely want to know what the fuck's going on, right? So as I got closer to the crowd, anyways, it ended up being some type of fight or some argument between one woman and another woman. They started hitting each other and the crowd got together. But again, I was drawn to the social proof principle. So don't ever be delusional, G's. When you say sheep and all of this type of stuff, everyone's a sheep to some extent. That's the point I'm trying to make to you. It just depends which shepherd you want to follow, right? And I want you to also recognize this is extremely, extremely important in sales and marketing. Even those so-called shepherds are some form of sheep to another shepherd. Don't let that shit go over your head, right? Anyway, so use this prompt. Roll. You are a marketing strategist leveraging social proof. Create a marketing campaign that uses testimonials, reviews, and social media content to show how others have successfully used the product/service. Steps. Number 1, gather testimonials and reviews. Number 2, highlight reviews and social, whatever that says. Number 3, use language that creates a sense of belonging and inclusivity. The goal here is to build trust and encourage the audience to take action. Narrowing, ensure the social proof is credible and relatable. And that's extremely, extremely important, right? Let's move on to the next one. Next one in is the credibility principle. And it heavily ties back into the social proof principle. I want you to understand these are heavily correlated. And for me personally, I believe the credibility principle in sales is by far one of the most important things. In fact, I believe I would call it the foundation of all sales, right? Let me try and explain to you why. Credibility is just another way of saying trust. And I want you to recognize this, an extremely important thing in sales. If that person trusts you, it does not matter what you're selling, they will buy. Fundamentally, you could have the worst product. You could be the worst salesperson. You could be absolutely horrible at every single thing in the entire sales funnel. But if they trust you, they will buy. It's as simple as that. I'll give you a prime example of this. I'm sure every single one of you have a friend who's an absolute idiot, but he's your friend. Or maybe you're that guy, right? Maybe you're that guy. Maybe you're an absolute fool. And you can still convince your friend, a very close friend of yours, to perhaps purchase something that you've purchased just by telling them like, hey, bro, I purchased this, it does this, it really works, you should get it too. And they will go and buy it. They will literally go and buy it. They will not need anything else whatsoever. So it's kind of like the social proof principle, but really it's the credibility principle because they trust you enough to just take your word for it. It's extremely, extremely important. And then obviously that's where we kind of derive into what are really the soft skills for this. Because when we talk trust and credibility, like everybody says, oh, you need the client to trust you. You need somebody to trust you in order to buy, right? But what does that actually mean? What I've done is I've broken this down into what I believe are 8 principles of trust and credibility. And I think if you acknowledge these and try and bake them into whatever it is you're doing, maybe you're trying to take a girl out on a date, maybe you're trying to sell someone, maybe you're trying to, over the phone, maybe you're trying to sell them on the door, maybe you are creating a new ad. If you can integrate the feelings of these soft principles, you will sell regardless of what's going on, right? So right on the top is authenticity and transparency. Now, I want you to recognize this, and I really, really want you to understand this. So 8 principles. Authenticity and transparency is number 1. I want you to recognize that when I talk about this, as much as you want to use this on others to get them to buy or sign them as a client, is also relevant to you as well. Geez, when you are on a call with a client, and your client turns around and says something to you about like, have you done this before? What are your proof? Or give me some social proof and all that, and you've got 0. If you're a fucking idiot who then decides to lie out of his teeth, you are doing absolutely nothing for your credibility principle. Now, there's almost like a caveat principle here, which is more related to like socializing and networking. But I want you to really, really recognize something, right? When a person starts bullshitting, every person by default, human nature, has almost this bullshit radar, right? It's almost like a spider sense. Like when you walk in a room and there's this one person, and I experienced this yesterday, right? And this one person just waffling away about how they've got this and how they can do this and blah, 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 blah. Like your spider sense starts like tingling. It's like, all right, you're just full of shit. That is that person there breaking the credibility principle because they've failed on the very first kind of soft skill in this principle, which is authenticity and transparency, right? So when you're on a call with a client, if you need to say to that client that you have not any previous experience, say that. Actually be authentic and be transparent, right? Because your demo or your free value that you presented them should have been so good that you got them into the call in the first place. The only thing that is going to do by saying that is just perhaps lower your desired cost or money in. That's probably the most it's going to do. But one thing it is going to do is increase your credibility principle, right? So as a business owner, me being a business owner, if someone comes to me and they have a really good free value, I look at it, I talk to them, hey, what other things have you done before? They say, hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've not really done anything, but I have practiced this a lot and I really would like to do it for you. I'm telling you, straight away in my head, my trust has just gone out the roof. I'm ready to buy now, right? So it's extremely, extremely important. The reason why I'm talking about this more than the other 7 is because for me, if you don't have authenticity and you don't have transparency in anything that you're doing, you are not gonna be able to execute on the credibility principle. Period. I promise you this. And the reason why the term is like, the concept of like, oh, salespeople are scammers. There's like a one-liner that people say about salespeople. But the reason that is because there was a large period of time where people just weren't authentic and they weren't transparent. And that's why the credibility of salespeople in general went and took a nosedive. And then obviously things have changed since then. So the saying fake it until you make it don't work. Fake it until you make it, it don't work in what principle? There are certain principles where fake it till you make it does work, right? So for example, if I'm going to rock up on a sales call, I should look like I'm worth $1 million. Doesn't mean you're worth $1 million. And that's where the principle of fake it till you make it does work, right? Credibility comes from authenticity and transparency. When I teach you these things, if I was bullshitting out of my mouth, right, and I'm just fabricating this, I don't even create the ads, I don't even fucking make X amount of money, millionaire, all these different type of things, right, that you entrust in me to then teach you, you would know fairly fast. Like these masterclass calls wouldn't even happen, right? Because I wouldn't even be able to teach you with them. The content creation masterclass calls I'm giving you, I would just be a normal bystander, pulled off the road to pretend to be a professor. You'd be able to sense that straight away. You really would, right? Okay, then from there, I believe the second soft skill that's important when it comes to the credibility principle is consistency and relatability, right? Again, this is one of those things where if you're in a scenario where somebody says something and you have actually been through that similar experience or anything along those lines, like it's such a G tactic, sales tactic or credibility or building a relationship tactic to double down in that, right? So let's just say like, I don't know, and I don't know why this comes into my head skiing because I fucking hate skiing and I've done skiing twice. Anyways, but let's just say, for example, like you opening in the sales call and the person opposite you says, hey, I just got back from a skiing trip. And you are a person who actually likes skiing. Like actually to double down and talk about that, right? Because that brings that relatability between you and that person. And again, it's just increasing that trust level. Consistency, I don't need to explain that to you. The third one, you're going to think, why wasn't this first? The third one is competence and expertise. I want you to recognize that competence and expertise is extremely important when building trust, but for the vast majority of people, when you are in a sales position or maybe you're running a campaign or whoever you're targeting, they are met by many people who are competent and experts or say they're experts, right? Which is why authenticity and relatability would come above competence. Because if you're authentic and you can show that you are genuine and you can also be relatable to that person, well then, as long as you've got the competence and expertise, well, you're pretty much quite high up on the trust radar, right? Okay, so then from there, empathy and active listening. My wife always tells me I need to work on empathy, but hey, I'm always empathetic to my students and active listeners. Anyways, delivery on promises, I think is extremely important. I like to do this a lot with my students, by the way. Like this list that you're seeing here, I can literally use me as an example with my students. Every time I've told you I'm going to do this, it happens. And that's delivery on my promise. And that's me building credibility to every single one of you. And I've always knew this, right? I've always thought in my head, okay, well, I do all the behind the scenes operations for a lot of the marketing and creative scenarios in the Tate universe. I don't want to show my face. I've always said that to myself. I don't want to show my face. Not everyone is a hero like Tate. I can't put myself in that position. He can, and he has the ability to bear all the brunt of everything that's happening. So salute to him. I don't want to do that, right? Because the moment I put my face on, I'm going to start getting attacked. So I have to then find a way to build credibility and trust with every single one of you lot, right? Because technically all you hear is my voice. And one of the things that I do on that is delivering on my promises. If I say to you there's going to be a 3-part psychological sales masterclass, I'm going to introduce you to sales psychology that you've never been introduced to before. I'm going to explain it. I'll deliver on it. And that's what I do, right? So extremely, extremely important, right? Okay. 6, ethical behavior. I think this is extremely important. Let me explain to you why. If someone has the ability to do something that's not ethical, it drops the trust score down, because what happens is you hear this phrase. Hear me out. This is the phrase that you'll hear. You'll hear the phrase, if he has the ability to do that to them, he has the ability to do it to me. And you've probably heard this amongst your friend circle as well. I guarantee you've heard this amongst your friend circle. If he has the ability to do that to them, he has the ability to do that to me. And that's what ethical behavior is, right? So you need to always be an ethical person, because the moment that you don't, everyone else or anyone else that you're reaching out, like, I'll give you a prime example, right? OnlyFans, taboo to talk about it in TRW. But I'm the realist professor. I don't give a fuck. I say how it is. You know how I get down, G's. But let's just say you are now approaching what I like to call the mythical client. So you've got enough reps in, you believe that you've got to a point of ability that in this particular niche, you can reach out to the highest person in this niche, right? Like the main influencer or the main product or whatever it is that you're in. And you do manage to get them on, they truly like rate your skills, all this type of stuff. Let's just say you came down to the social proof part, right? I guarantee you that if you was also doing OnlyFans as one of your clientele, you wouldn't mention it. You actually wouldn't mention it. You wouldn't mention it because you don't deem that as ethical behavior, and therefore you somewhat know that if you do mention that to your client, then your client probably wouldn't sign you because your trust has diminished, right? So you have to be in a scenario where, and again, it just depends what you're niche in. If for whatever reason you're in a niche that's completely unethical, good luck to you. I will never help you. That's fine. You just do your thing. But if you're in or diving down a niche where it's ethical, like you might be, I want to go down a niche where it's, I don't know, charity based, for example, right? Then you're not going to get to a point where like biggest charity won't work with you if you turn around and say, oh, well, you know what? Actually, I've also been creating content for OnlyFans too. I have really, really good marketing and sales business model over there. You're not, right? So ethical behavior, it's extremely, extremely important. Don't do dumb shit. Number 7, I'm sorry, before I move to number 7, why I think number 6 is quite important, because a lot of you are young, right? A lot of you are susceptible to, but this is going to pay me a huge amount of money. And shout out to Luke Rao. Like if any of you get a chance to reach out to him, he was in a scenario where the brands that he was working with, and he's really good at user generated content, which is the social proof aspect, they were basically tempting him with, I think it was somewhere in like 100K plus deal to do makeup. So test the makeup on him, talk about makeup on boys, talk about makeup on adult or male teenagers and things along those lines. And I want you to understand that is a hell of a fucking lot of money when you're young. Luke's fairly young, right? So that's why I think that point there is extremely, extremely important. Like remember, G's, it might be good for the intermediate, but long term, it's not going to do no favors whatsoever. And we're all in the long game. Remember that, right? Multi-level game. I've been in the game for 15 years. I'm going to retire. Eventually, you are going to take the whole game by storm. Remember, the decisions you make today will impact the decisions tomorrow, or even the opportunities tomorrow, right? Okay, next one. Building relationships. Geez, it is what it is, right? You need to be in a scenario where you're able to have the ability to talk. I did a call previously where I said something along the lines about my first call. I just couldn't talk. Like I literally couldn't talk. And I think that a lot of people fail on this because it is part of a trusting, right? If you start talking to someone new and you just start talking to them like they're your friend, automatically you will increase the trust level, right? And the last one is learning from mistakes. Extremely important. I think you always need a feedback loop. Like whatever you do wrong, you always need to come back and say to yourself, well, what did I do wrong, right? All right, okay, so credibility principle. Trust is the foundation of sales. Those are what I believe are the 8 fundamentals of trust, because everybody says to you, hey, you need to make your client trust you. You need to make X, Y, and Z scenario. They need to trust you. That is what it actually means. Those are the 8 things, right? But if you focus on those 8 things with anything, that people will buy from you straight away, right? All right, so the prompt for this, right? And remember the kind of conversation I had about the 8 points, that's more in relation to sales, actual on a call, but you can also build campaigns around credibility. So use this prompt. Roles. You are a marketing strategist specializing in building credibility. Instructions. Create a marketing campaign that builds trust and credibility with busy professionals. Steps. Number 1, emphasize the experience and qualifications of the team and the brand. Number 2, highlight awards, certifications, or partnerships. Number 3, use clear and concise messaging. The goal here, build trust and encourage action. Narrowing, ensure credibility factors are predominantly featured. Next one, scarcity and abundance. Scarcity and abundance, or scarcity versus abundance. So I've not actually written a lot here, right? And there's a reason why I've not written a lot is simply because we've already discussed scarcity, and I want to try and explain this to you, right? So earlier we talked about scarcity and we talked about the idea of supply and demand, right? And if something there's a less amount of something, then the demand usually increases for it as long as it's a good product, right? Now you see that as long as it's a good product, that's the actual abundance part. So what you actually want to do here, because, and this is a massive failure on many people when it comes to sales, and a massive failure on a lot of ads, a massive failure on a lot of campaigns that I see out there, is they will drive the scarcity factor, right? They will be like, oh, there's only 5 left. Get your hands on this. There's only 20 of them left, right? And in their mind, they believe that they've done enough to drive up the demand, but you actually don't drive up the demand, believe it or not. Just introducing the scarcity theory will not lead to you driving up the demand for whatever it is you're selling significantly, unless you include abundance. Now you're probably sitting there thinking, for anyone who understands these words, like, well, how does that work? Like scarcity means there's less of something, abundance means there's more of something. I don't understand. Well, what you're actually supposed to do is show the abundance in the service benefits, right? So I'll read it out for you. So highlighting scarcity while emphasizing abundant amount of benefits can lead to more action. Does that make sense? I hope that is really resonating with you lot. When you say there is a small amount of this particular thing, and then you double into the wild amount of things this one thing can do, you then increase your sales, right? You don't increase your sales by saying, hey, and let's just go with like, there's a pill, right? I always talk about this, right? I always mention that I wish there was a pill which allowed you to not sleep, not eat, and just stay focused 24/7, right? So let's just say that pill's available now on the market, right? Did you just see what I did? I just mentioned all of the abundance benefits of that pill. But let's just say there's only 10 of these pills now. Do you want one? Bro, everyone wants one, but there's only 10. But did you see, I used scarcity and abundance, right? The abundance was, these are all of the different benefits of this product or this service. And the scarcity was, well, there's only 5 of them or 10 of them left. Better get it now. And that's the scarcity versus abundance. And it's about balancing those 2 concepts of there's so much of something and there's a little of something. It's always, there's a little of the product and there's so much this product can do, right? So the prompts for this, if you're going to set up a marketing campaign, if you're going to use it in your ad, and I'm going to come back and explain some of the prompting logic to a lot of you lot, right? Because I think you lot might overkill it, but use this prompt. Roles. You are a marketing specialist specializing in scarcity versus abundance. Write a marketing campaign that highlights the scarcity of the product/service whilst emphasizing the abundance of benefits, right? So steps. Number 1, highlight the scarcity of the product/service. Number 2, emphasize the abundance of benefits. Number 3, create a sense of urgency, right? And sense of urgency is another entire sales principle. I don't really think I need to explain that to you lot. I did say the 10 psychological sales model. We're talking about ones that you've probably overlooked, right? Sense of urgency, curiosity, FOMO. These are the ones I know every single one of you lot know, right? Okay, so moving on. Next one is confirmation bias principle. Now, what the confirmation bias is when something aligns with your beliefs. Now, I can really double down into this. I have a separate masterclass, which was actually part of the advanced course, where I show people how to prompt all the way down to find someone's subconscious belief system. But I'm going to kind of give you a general picture here, right? Every single one of you are brought up with a belief system, right? Now, that belief system, only until someone provides some type of evidence in whatever it is that they're selling you that aligns in that belief system will you buy. And I'll give you a primary example of this, right? If, for example, I'm telling you that the Matrix, COVID, all these different things, right, are a ploy of the system. I'm using Taylor's narrative here, by the way. In your belief system, your natural default belief system, and in fact, yeah, we'll use this one, I'll use another one, right? Your natural belief system will say, yeah, I think so. But that's not enough to warrant you to say, okay, I follow Andrew Tate and I believe what he's saying. Only until the evidence you are shown then aligns to your belief system. So a lot of people, they didn't really listen to Andrew Tate until they realized that COVID was full of shit, right? There was a whole bunch of people that were listening to Andrew Tate, but they were like, I'm not sure yet. But once it came out that COVID was just a whole bunch of BS, there was all sorts of rumors started to fly out, Pfizer, all these different things. Then all of a sudden what happened is the evidence, what Tate was originally talking about, aligned into the person's belief system. And then all of a sudden they were like, okay, yeah, I follow Tate. I believe what he's saying. What he's saying now makes sense because it came and aligned into the person's belief system, right? And that's a bit more like complicated. I have to go down another 3-4 layers, but let's just use one that's a lot easier, right? There are only two genders. Fundamentally, in your belief system, like from you being a kid all the way growing up, in your belief system, deep rooted, you know there's only two genders, right? And when you're hearing all of these different things about LGBTQ and all that type of stuff, you will sit there and you'll sit quietly. And then eventually someone comes and says, no, there's only two genders, boy and girl. Guess what? All of a sudden, they trigger straight into your belief system and you're like, yep, I'm listening to you. You are correct. Now, I want you to understand this. Why is LGBTQ pushed heavily on children? Does anyone know? And it's actually related to the confirmation bias. The aim is to disgruntle their belief system on the way up to adolescence. Does that make sense? Because if you disrupt someone's belief system on the way to adolescence, then when they are at a point where, okay, this is our belief system, well then now, and I'll give you a prime example of this, right? It's fucking really evil. It's genuinely evil, but the way that I'm talking, explaining these things, you start to realize that this is how important sales and marketing actually is, and sales in particular, right? Because sales is everything. And that's why you hear Seth in his lessons that he's got in the sales training section, he's always going on about it. Sales is everything. Sales is life. And this is it. I'm giving you a prime example. So let's get into a bit more of the dark side of this. Everyone who's had like their belief system disrupted at a young age up until adolescence, or whilst all of that stuff was happening, I want you to recognize, even if there's a restore of balance, right? A restore of balance. If later down the line, a scenario came in and they said, no, somebody said, no, there's not two agendas, there's 146. Guess what their belief system says? Think what I'm saying to you, right? Now their belief system is wired to believe that there is more than two genders. And the hope and the prayer and what we believe, and I think it will prevail, is that by your natural default, right, as a human being, as our ancestors, and we thinking about all of that type of stuff, by a natural default, somewhere deep inside everyone understands there's only two agendas, right? For somebody who's been susceptible to all of this, whilst they've been growing up, their belief system doesn't say that they've got two genders. Their belief system is different, right? So then it's all against, no, there's more than, there should be LGBTQ, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually they'll be quiet, they'll be silent, they'll listen to everything that's been told to them, but does it align to their belief system? Probably not, until somebody comes along and says, yeah, there's more than two genders. Now, all of a sudden it aligns into their belief system. So you can see where confirmation bias, if you tweak it and use it in a certain way, how it comes into effect, right? It's extremely, extremely powerful confirmation bias. I highly recommend that if any of you have the time, really double down on confirmation bias, couple that with social proof principle. That's what I use, right? A lot of the works that we use is confirmation bias and social proof principle. Those are my two favorite. But like I said, there's a couple on here that we've been working through. And I've been thinking to myself, well, you know what? I need to start bringing those back into the game. So individuals are more likely to act on information that aligns with their worldview. That's all it is. Simple as that. If it aligns with your worldview, your belief system, people will act upon that information that you're giving them. Simple as that. All right, okay. So, and you know what? Just before I move into the prompt for that, that is also the reason that people experience, and I'm moving into more of the creation side and ads. That is why people actually experience ad fatigue, like in a business. Why do you experience ad fatigue? You experience ad fatigue because there's only so many people that you can hit with one particular narrative that they will take action on in their belief system, right? Because everybody has multiple levels of belief system. So some of you have a belief system of, something probably to do with finances. Someone have a belief system to do with relationships. Some of you have a belief system to do with health, wealth. You all have different belief systems, right? So just if you're able to sit back and say to yourself, okay, but I did this super amazing ad one time and I did really, really good sales with it, or promo, or whatever it is you want to call it. Why is it that if I use that same one again, it doesn't perform as well? Why? Because you probably hit everyone in that belief system bracket. As many impressions and as far out you could get it pushed at that particular time, you probably touched everyone in that belief system that took action already. Therefore, you can't use that ad again, or that campaign again, or that logic again, because you now need to hit a different belief system, which means a different ad, a different campaign, a different scenario. But I hope what I just said, a lot of you have taken in, because that's extremely important, what I just said about ad fatigue. Anyone who's in the game of selling through video, ad fatigue is a real thing, right? So Chris says, is it possible to shift beliefs with marketing and content? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we see this all the time. I don't want to mention like actual names of two of the wars that are currently going on in the headlines, but you can clearly see on social media which parties are winning. You can actually see it, right? They are fitting perfectly in people's belief systems. The majority of people's belief system is X, Y, and Z. They will create content around X, Y, and Z, and they're winning an entire narrative. Not saying who's good and who's right and who's wrong and who's evil. I'm just talking purely in the terms of sales and marketing here, G's, right? As an absolute non-empathetic person. You all got to recognize that ads, promos, campaigns, you've got to be running multiple different ones in order to get confirmation bias from thousands, millions of different viewpoints. And you only ever need to hit the confirmation bias once with one person, right? So is the same reason you need a unique angle in ecom to target people with those beliefs? Absolutely. Absolutely, right? And a lot of the ecom, if we go to some of the ecom students listening, and I hope they are, and I hope they come and listen to some of the masterclass calls, ecom students, they'll have one product, right? And they're trying to sell this one product. And they will just use the same confirmation bias principle over and over and over and over and over and over and over. They think, listen to me, right? They think that by changing the visuals or changing some of the audio or doing something a bit different, they think that that's the reason why the ad or the product should sell more. And that's not actually the truth, right? What they fail to realize is that's only half of the job. If you've got this one product and you want to make it the best selling product that you can possibly, you've got to find multiple ways to fit in people's belief system, right? So hand cream, someone's belief system might be it gets rid of germs. Another person's belief system might be, well, if you got crusty hands, you're going to need this, bro. You get what I'm trying to say? That's two ads right there at the top of my head. But most people just sit there and say, oh, it gets rid of 99.9% of germs on your hands. And they just keep running that same narrative over and over and over and over and over and over. And then eventually they get to a point where, well, I'm not getting any more sales from this. Oh, it must be ad fatigue. I've got to change some stuff. But they don't realize that you actually got to change your confirmation bias, right? Right? Because the idea of this prompt is what I've just explained to you. You use this prompt in multiple levels, right? Like multiple products and different ways, and you'll get multiple. Like when you use these prompts, you get like straight away GPT gives you like three different ideas, and you could just say, hey, can you give me a different confirmation bias? Boom, another 3. Hey, can you give me another 3 different confirmation bias? Boom, another 3, right? Okay, so roles. You are marketing strategies leveraging confirmation bias. Instructions, create a marketing campaign that uses language and messaging to confirm the existing beliefs and values of a busy professional. I always use busy professionals here because I'm talking more in terms of a client, like outreach perspective. You lot can tweak and change, and I'll touch on that before we close. Steps. Number 1, identify the audience's existing beliefs and values. 2, highlight the product service aligns with their worldview. Number 3, use clear and concise messaging. The goal, align with the audience's belief and encourage action, right? And narrowing, ensure the messaging is aligned with audience values, okay? So moving on to the last one, which is relatively simple, and I don't think I have to go into any in-depth explanation here. It's called the endowment effect, and it's basically people value what they own, right? And the example that I want to give you here is a property. So anyone who owns the property or has owned the property for a while, or if you're with your parents and they own that property, maybe they even pay mortgage, whatever it is, I want you to understand what they envisage as the value of that property will always be higher than what the actual property market value is. That's the endowment effect, right? So the endowment effect is telling people that, hey, if you value something, you're always going to price it up more. Like if something's of value to you, you will always price it up more. Now, so people are saying, well, how do you apply that when we're talking about marketing, sales, or my product? It's super simple. The aim, right? The aim here is to bring some sort of emotional attachment to your product and service, right? Think about it. The idea of endowment effect is involving a personal value. That's it. Anything that someone deems as a personal value, they straight away, in their mind, it's worth more. So if I've got this product and service, and I can create some type of emotional attachment from them to that product and service, I straight away bring the value up. I'm more likely to get a sale. And I don't want to say exactly what I tested this out on. I had such a fucking amazing response. And I'll tell you what it was. Basically, I mean, I just said I didn't want to tell you, but I'll give you a rough idea. It was something to do with a service that's related to the elderly, right? That was the kind of niche and example I went down to test some of this stuff. And I did the endowment effect. I was like, well, how does this work, right? And GPT basically responded back and it said, family first. And I was like, wow. Like my product puts family first. Holy shit. That's the endowment effect, right? Because I've now just bought like what people perceive as value, like core values or owned into my product. Hear me out, G's. When you're looking at these prompts, I want you to really recognize they're not as difficult as you believe they are in terms of use case. What you need to do is feed ChatGPT with the information, but all you're usually doing is changing this. Where it says product and service, you are putting in whatever your product and service is. And then from there, you'll get back the information you need. That's number 1. Number 2 point on these prompts, I want you to really, really recognize that every single one of them include this word purposefully. Encourage action, or encourage action, however you want to say it. But the reason why I want to pull that out is all this information I've given you on this masterclass call is absolutely pointless if you yourself don't take action with it either. You need to be able to say to yourself, all this information Paul has now given me on these 10 psychological sales aspects, how do I apply them in whatever scenario I'm in, right? Here's the bonus point for this masterclass. And I'm giving this to you as an appreciation for being with me on all 3 of these sales masterclass. It has been difficult. It took a while to put them together, and I hope you've enjoyed them. So I'm going to give you this bonus point, right? And it's extremely pertinent to people who are struggling with niches, struggling with content ideas, struggling where to go, right? What are the easiest ways to make money in? Number 1, and I'm telling you, this took me a very, very long time to put down. Men's lust is number 1. Number 2, women's desire for beauty. Number 3, elderly health. When people are old, they want their health back. Number 4, children's education. Number 5, rich people's fear of loss. And number 6, poor people's desire to get rich. Those are the 6 things, if you not double down in, will get you to the money as fast as possible, right? So I'm going to say them to you again. Number 1, men's lust, right? And remember, still keep it ethical. I said men's lust. I didn't mean anything super shady. Think about what I'm saying to you. Like, really, really use that as brain power. Number 2, women's desire for beauty. Again, do not think in terms of like weird. Just think in normal terms. I'll give you an example. Women's desire for beauty, right? You should go and research the whole career of Huda Beauty. She literally created a whole makeup brand from scratch and she crushed it, right? And that was her in number 2 region. Women's desire for beauty. She doubled down on that, right? Elderly health. People, when they get old, they want to get healthy again. Children's education. Children's education is huge. It's massive. We've already discussed some of this in the whole beef with the LGBTQ stuff and confirmation bias. Number 5, rich people's fear of loss. And out of all of these, that's the one that resonates or sticks out to me the most. And I've been exploring that. Thinking from my own perspective, what am I afraid of losing? How can someone use that and make money from it? Or what type of clients could you outreach that are in that type of scenario? Or what type of business model could you build off the back of that, right? And then number 6, people's desire to get rich. quick. And this is everywhere, G's. You see all the time. I do truly believe that TRW is the only way for you to get as rich as quick as possible, whilst also changing your mindset and making you understand that the wealth game is a multi-level game. So whenever you hear any of these dork out there influencers telling you to take the wrong actions, bro, ignore them. Like I said, if you're building a personal brand, it's a scaling mechanism. And I'm going to talk about that another time. Yes, G's, it's finally here. One's in the content creation chat. If you can hear me loud and clear, we are doing the sales masterclass, something that I believe the vast majority of students across the entirety of TRW need. We are going to be talking about how to create a high ticket offer. And I'll be doing this with Seth, and it will be a plug and play. Seth, have I got you in the background, bro?
Yeah, brother. How we doing, everybody? How we doing?
All right, nice. So what do I mean by plug and play, G's? The first thing I want every single one of you to do is get a piece of paper and pen. This masterclass call will, of course, be available in the masterclass section. However, it's always good when you're here on the call and you're taking notes as we go along. So first things first, let me go ahead and get the whiteboard up. Very clean whiteboard. I want every single one of you to pay attention. When I say plug and play, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be discussing what essentially constitutes as a great offer. There are 4 key components of that. We're going to be drawing it, and then from there, we're going to be deep diving each of these components, and then we're going to show you exactly how you would plug and play for whatever scenario you're in. So for example, if you are running a ad creation business, a short form content creation business, maybe you're doing an AI automation service with chatbots, we're going to do those examples here, and then based on that knowledge, you should be able to plug and play in whatever scenario, whatever business model you are doing. It's extremely, extremely important you understand this, because this is the game changer when it comes to online businesses. So I don't know, Seth, if you want to go ahead and give them a bit of information, a bit of an intro, whilst I draw the 4 rectangles of this masterclass call.
Yeah, no problem. What's up, everybody? It's been a while, hasn't it? But yeah, man, guys, an offer is one of the most important parts of your whole entire sales process, because if you don't have a right offer, then you don't know what you're actually going to be selling. If you don't know what you're going to be selling, then how are you going to reach out to the right clientele? If you don't know what clientele you go on, then how are you going to sell anybody, right? So you have to understand what your actual offer is to be able to move forward with your actual calls, and then getting on the call, and then doing all these other different things. So that's what we're doing. That's how we're breaking it down. Like Pope said, we got 4 elements of this. Each of these are going to be pretty high depth. So like he said, make sure you take notes. Wagwan, as for what's up, everybody? I know it's been a while, but I told you I was in the trenches. Y'all don't believe me. I told you I was in the trenches. Getting all that good. Anyway.
Okay, I've got them up. Let's go through what the 4 are.
All right. So it's pretty simple, guys. A lot of times, most people really make a big deal out of an offer, but it's super simple when we break it down. You know how we do it here. So the first part is the promise. Okay. After the promise, you have the deliverables. And don't worry, guys, we're going to go back and go way down deep into this. After the deliverables, you have your unique differentiator. I almost screwed that word up. And then finally, you have your risk reversal. All right, so you have the promise, deliverables, unique differentiators, and then your risk reversals. Each of these components are super important within your offer, and they make your offer irresistible, right? Because we're not just creating any red generalized offer. We're going to create an offer that's so irresistible that they'd be stupid to say no to this. All right, so let's get into it. So your first section, the promise, super simple. But your promise is the foundation of your offer. Basically, in a nutshell, it's what transformation and or result is your offer guaranteeing. So the promise is the foundation of the offer. It should immediately grab the attention and tell the prospect exactly what they are getting and why it matters to them. Because remember, this is not about you. This is not about the product's features. It's about the outcome that your customer desires. All right. So the formula, it's I help who achieve result without biggest pain point. We're going to break down each of these elements.
So let's go over that again, right? I help who?
Achieve result.
Achieve result.
Yep. Without biggest pain point.
Go on, carry on, Seth. I've got it.
All right. So breaking that down, who is the offer designed for? Again, it's your ideal customer profile. Who are you actually reaching out to? Who is going to buy your product? Super simple there. The result is what is the primary transformation that your customer is going to achieve. Now, I want to break that down a bit more. Remember, I said primary transformation, meaning it's not just going to be, you're going to get this, and this. No, it's going to be the primary transformation. So think about the customer's dream state. And shout out to Kevin C for putting that in. Haven't seen him in a while in the chat. It's good to see you, bro. So you have to have the biggest transformation that they're going to experience, because that has to relate directly to their biggest pain point, because that's what's most frustrating with issues that they're struggling with. If you find a result that directly correlates with their biggest pain point, you are going to make a beautiful offer, and you're going to grab their attention immediately. So again, like I said earlier, when we break these down into simplistic concepts, an offer is not really super complex. You have 3 simple elements in most of these things that allows you to make a beautiful offer. So one more time, just in case you missed it. The formula is I help who achieve result without biggest pain point. All right.
Now, geez, just 1 second. So I can see in the chat people saying examples, stuff like that. Like I said at the starting, have some patience. We're going to break this down, and then we're going to give you examples. We'll do a Q&A at the end. Geez, you're asking for examples. You don't even understand what we mean by deliverables or unique differentiator or risk reversal. Just have some patience, okay? Yep. So number 2.
Real quick, I want to go over the common mistakes I'm avoiding the promise.
Yep.
I moved on too quickly. So a lot of times we end up being too big, right? So you could say, oh, we help business grow, or we're going to make you money. Okay, but how? What is the one thing that you're going to change? You have to be somewhat specific, but you're not just telling you how you do everything. It's just you're going to do all this. And this is going to make more sense when we have the examples, but we need to go through everything for you to understand it. The second mistake is focusing on the features of your product or service instead of the results, right? We have to have the benefit for the customer. They don't give a shit about you. They care about what it does for them. And that's the third one, is making it about you. The offer has nothing to do with you. It always has to tie your promise and outcome to your customers once and eliminate all of the major pain points in the process. Okay, I digress. On to number 2, the deliverables. What are they actually getting, right? Super straightforward. Now that we've created an exciting promise, the customer now needs to know what they're actually getting from your promise. And this is where we break the offer down into clear, tangible, that's an important word for you guys, tangible deliveries. Excuse me. Remember, people buy with emotion, but they justify their purchases with logic. This deliverable section provides that logical icing on the cake as to justification as to why they should buy, right? So it's a super simple formula, and there's not really a formula. You're just going to basically list what's included in your offer. You have to focus on tangible outcomes, not just features, and then you're going to keep it clear, simple, and structured. So a lot of the times, people try to over embellish this or make it super salesy. This is not your pitch. Your offer is not your pitch. Your offer is exactly what they're getting and exactly what they're going to do. And then your deliverables are exactly what they're getting, right? So I gotta do an example here.
Go ahead.
So if I'm doing AI powered chatbots, right? I would have about 3 deliverables ish, right? So my AI chatbot answers, how am I gonna frame this? So AI chatbot that answers customers' inquiries 24/7. It seamlessly integrates with whatever CRM, whether it be Calendly, whether it be Go High Level, whether it be whatever CRM you're used, so on and so forth. And I can customize the training to match your brand's tone and messaging exactly, right? Those are 3 deliverables that I can guarantee they are going to get because that's exactly what my service offers, right? Now, another common mistake with this is a lot of times, again, you're not being specific enough. How does it help? What does it do? Just saying, hey, this chatbot helps a business doesn't tell them a damn thing. Remember, when I said I can have custom training, I can seamlessly integrate with any type of CRM that you have, and I'm going to answer customers' inquiries 24/7. And then you have to remember, you're not just listing the features of deliverables, you're actually saying what they get so they get their time back, right? We can add a little bit of sales on that, but not too much. An AI chatbot to answer customer inquiries 24/7 so that you can finally focus on growing and building your business. Deliverable number 1, right? Super simple. All right.
And just on this, G's, whenever we come to deliverables, I highly recommend use the power of 3. 3 deliverables, very clear, very precise in exactly what those deliverables are going to achieve.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Do they understand the power of 3?
You can give it to him if you want to, Seth.
I think
I need a whole other masterclass.
Yeah, you probably will.
Yeah.
I mean, I might throw that in a sales lesson.
Yeah.
I'll throw that in a sales lesson. All right. So your unique differentiator. I've said that really well 4 times in a row. I'm proud of myself. So this is why are you better than anyone else? Why is your offer better than anyone else? Right. So this is where the customer understands what they're getting. They're already hooked in. The next question is, why should I choose you instead of someone else? Why are you better? What makes you better? Right. So this is where you're going to explain what makes your offer different, unique, superior, especially when compared to people in the same marketplace, your competition, so on and so forth. Right. The formula, again, is super simple. So it's unlike your common alternative. Now, this doesn't have to be a competitor. Remember, this could just be a different product. Unlike common alternative, our solution has a unique benefit that competitors lack. Go over that again. So unlike common alternative, our solution has a unique benefit that competitors lack. Let's break that down, right? Your common alternative. So what would the customer do if they didn't buy from you? Could be whether they're doing the old way of doing things, whether it's the competition, whether it's a different product, whether they're doing it manually. There's so many different aspects that we can say that could be a common alternative. That's why you have to do a little bit of research on your customer base and understand who your ICP is. Because if it's an older generation, for example, then you could most likely hit on the pain point of them doing stuff the old way or just how they've done it their entire life. And then you can focus on that dream state, right? But if your ICP is a bunch of newer people, then you're probably going to have to focus more on different products or services or different competition or how they do things now, right? You have to figure a little bit about your ideal customer profile in order to actually find out what their common alternative is. And then the one thing that sets you apart in your unique benefit that allows it to also tie in with the dream state. Now, remember, there's a pretty common theme with all of these. You don't want to be too generic with this, right? Don't say what everyone else says, right? Do a little bit of research. Look at your competition. Guys, all right, this is one of the most important things that you can do. And I promise you, if you are not doing this, you're missing out. Call your competition. If you're making calls, call your competition. Look at their websites. Look at how their offer is structured. Look at everything they're doing. And then make it better, right? We talk about swagger jacking all the time, but really what you're doing is you're finding information so that you don't sound like everybody else. So that you sound unique. You sound like you are different. Because people are tired of dealing with normal people every single day. They want someone that actually cares. They want someone to do all this other stuff. All right. And then you have to also remember to not, when you're talking about your unique differentiator, what makes you different, you don't want to compare yourself to the wrong thing, right? So when we say unlike common thing, we usually don't want to say stuff that is very broad. Like, for example, if we were doing content creation, I don't want to say unlike social media marketing, we do stuff different because honestly, you don't, right? It's honestly the exact same. You have to focus on these direct things, not just random stuff. And then the last common mistake on that one is trying to be different in too many ways, right? There's 3 real things that differentiate you in most things. Being faster, being genuinely better, being smarter, doing all these other different things. You can't be all of them. You just can't. So focus on speed of deliverability, focus on the quality of your products, focus on doing it in a more efficient manner, focus on one of those things, and whichever one matters most to your customer base. Focus on all of them. People tend to get overwhelmed and they're just like, oh, this is too good to be true. So we want to give them exactly what they need, not too much. All right. Lastly, risk reversal. How do you remove any single doubts that your customer has? That's what this is. And this is the biggest reason people hesitate. It's not the fear of missing out. It's the fear of making the wrong decision. Risk reversals remove that fear by showing the customer that they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. At this point in your offer, your risk reversal is saying, if you do this, this can't happen to you, basically, right? So the formula, if worst case scenario happens, we risk reversal strategy, right? It's super simple. If worst case scenario happens, we risk reversal. Now, we have to understand that in the risk reversal, it has to be something that you can actually do. If you just say something, you have this complicated terms where you have to go 5 down things, where you have to fill out these 10 forms, people are like, oh, this isn't a risk reversal. We need to have a bit more about this. Sorry, geez. So your risk reversal must have a value to the customer where if they say yes, they're not going to lose at all, ever, because of the fact that you have made your offer so damn good that 1, they're stupid to say no to this. 2, if they do it, they can't lose. And 3, you're psychologically removing that buyer's fear of making the bad decision. And here's what you're really doing. Here's why I call it a risk reversal, right? You're transferring all the risk from your prospect to you. Because every buyer has doubts. without the risk reversals, you're saying, hey, I'm taking all the risk by even trying like this out right now. I'm taking all the risk by this deal. You're only going to get stuff and I'm only going to get stuff if we both win. And shout out to Kevin C, put it out beautifully. I'll work with you until you get X results, or I don't get paid until you get X results.
Yeah, and geez, one of the most common risk reversals you'll ever see in sales, and I promise you this, once I say it, you're going to think, is 30-day money back guarantee.
Yep.
You see that used everywhere in products.
Yep.
And the beauty of that, I want you to understand, like if you use risk reversals properly, it's so famous the goose, you won't believe it. Because you see, the 30-day money back guarantee, no one really gives it back.
Nope.
You know? How many times have you bought something and thought in your head, there's a 30-day money back guarantee. If I don't use this blender, let's just say it's a blender, right? I don't know why I thought a blender, I thought a protein shake, I'm going down that route. You don't really give the blender back.
No.
Even if you stop using it.
But it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, oh well, shit, if I don't like it, like I can just give it back. Because, and here's the thing, as a business, you have to be confident in your product to be able to offer that as well, right? If you're offering a shit product, then yeah, you're gonna probably have a bunch of people, especially if they're paying, ticket prices of what we're doing is not low, right? So if we're charging $5,000 for an AI build, if we're charging $5,000 for a content creation strategy, that's on the low end, way low end. If we're charging that much, then yeah, people are gonna be more inclined to be more critical of your product or service, so you better deliver. Because there's a lot of things that have to go right in order for them to be happy. Another common one that I see a lot is basically trying before you buy. Right. Yep. So it's basically a free trial, and you can sweeten that by basically saying it's done for you until you win, or you have a risk-free exit. Like there's so many different risk reversals in the game today. It just depends on what you actually want to do. Now, I do want to go on some things that there are a lot of common risk reversal mistakes that really hurt people, because your risk reversal should only strengthen your offer. And if you remember, guys, look at the way this is structured. As we go to each step, it makes the buyer, or it makes the prospect, more inclined to buy. The promise is getting them hooked. The deliverables are given their 3 points of their action deliverables. The unique differentiator is basically saying, hey, why us? Why not some other Joe Schmo? And the risk reversal is taking all the fear away. Everything builds on top of the customer's journey of how they think about buying a product or service. There's a reason that it's structured this way. Anyway, risk reversal. So you have to have a strong guarantee, right? Just saying, oh, your satisfaction guaranteed. That doesn't mean anything. That's not an actual risk reversal. That's just a bunch of sales jargon that doesn't mean anything. We're not trying to famous the goose here. We're trying to legitimately give them something that they can see, they can hear, they can feel, they can touch, they can do whatever they want with it. And then that way they have no reason to say no, right? Another thing is too many conditions in the fine print. So you're saying, oh yeah, your risk reversal is like 5 paragraphs long and they have to read all these other different things. They have to do a bunch of other stuff. No, just one simple statement. Look at the formula. It's super simple, right? Making it complicated, your guarantee should be one sentence. If it's too long, if it's longer than one sentence, it's too complicated. Simplify it. And then again, being afraid to offer one. A lot of businesses fear offering that guarantee because they think customers are going to abuse it. I promise you, if you're delivering a quality product or service, there's nothing to worry about there. A strong guarantee actually increases your sales way more than a refund request will ever hurt your revenue at the end of the day. Because more people are going to buy because you have that risk reversal than are going to ask for a refund because you have that risk reversal, right? The final thing is you have to make your guarantee simple, bold, easy to understand, and then remove all the fear from the purchase and taking the risk off the buyer and putting it on you. And then you have to understand, again, you have to do research to choose the best type of risk reversal that aligns with your ICP, your product, and your service.
All right, brilliant. So that's the offer. That's how you create the offer. It's a plug and play. Now, there are going to be students who are listening to this and saying, well, how do I plug and play that? The very first thing I would say to you, like, it's a masterclass call. It's not just a call, meaning there are elements in here that you have to go research, talk to some of the G's over in the sales training area, all of that type of good stuff. But to help you out, the second point, let's do some plug and plays ourselves. And I promise you, none of this has been rehearsed, G's. We are literally going to take things off the top of our dome. We're going to try and use this plug and play structure to literally show you how we would do it, right? So this is how I would ideally like to do it. Is the very first one is we're going to take my business model. So we're going to take ads, ad creation. Then we're going to take the Cam's business model, which is AI and chatbots, lead capture. And then from there, one of you lucky souls, yes, G's, one of you lucky souls, we are going to select from in the chats and we're going to create an offer for you. Then we'll do a bit of a Q&A and then we'll close off the call. How does that sound?
Sounds like these people don't understand value they're getting.
All right, okay. So the very first one we're going to start with is ad creation, right? Ad creation, my baby, my everything. Now, the first thing is the promise, right? So grab the attention. I want you to understand the way I look at this particular plug and play is the exact same way I look at a hook on a video.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? It needs to grab the person's attention. So the very first thing I need to ask myself is this, right? And it comes back to what Seth is saying about ICP, understanding your customer, understanding your audience, understanding the people you're outreaching to. The very first thing I'm going to say to myself is, well, where do you use ads? What are ads used for? What am I trying to do? What's the objective? Well, the objective of my ads, or anyone who is running ads or going to be, needing ads, is they're trying to sell something, right? They're trying to get someone to go somewhere, to click something, to buy something. What is that usually associated to? It's usually associated to some type of metric that is clicking, right? So if I was going to do this, and obviously Saf is going to bully me on certain parts and stuff like that, I would literally say to myself, okay, the biggest thing that is going to grab someone's attention that is running ads is going to be CTR. It's going to be their click-through rate. So straight away, I'm going to say on the very first part of my offer is, hey, I create ads, my ads or our ads or the service that we're going to give to you in terms of ads is going to increase your CTR by 25%. Boom. One line. I would hit them with one line that is going to completely knock them out of the ballpark. 25% increase on my ad click-through rate. Straight away, the mind's going to start thinking, well, what does that mean downstream? And it means a decent amount of revenue traffic into them, high quality traffic, right? I'm going to increase someone's click-through rate on their ads by 25%. That is my foundation. That is my principle. Seth?
Yep. Beautiful. I mean, it's super simple. There's no reason to make it super complex, which is a mistake that a lot of people make. It's just like, hey, I'm going to increase your CTR by 25%. Right? That's super simple to the point. There's no reason to make it more complicated than that. There's no reason to add a bunch of sales jargon in there. Now, you can add a bit of a hook, and you can add a bit of painting the picture into that, right? So, we'll increase your CTR by 25%. And then on top of that, we can add a bit more into it to where you finally have ads that will convert without wasting money on a meeting buy strategy that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
So then when we go into the deliverables, and geez, by the way, anyone who's asking who achieved the result and without the biggest pain point, it's because I already, in that one sentence, geez, I've already answered all of that, right? Who is only going to be people who run in ads because I'm increasing this click-through rate, right? achieve the result, it's the 25%. So I really am a massive advocate of using percentages. Seth knows this. Everybody's like, work it on a percentage, figure it out. 25% might be too much for you lot. It doesn't really matter. You've got to figure that out. This is part of the research, why we always say research matters the most. And then when we say biggest pain point, I already know people who run ads or are creating ads, their biggest problem is getting people to click the goddamn link.
Yep.
Right? So I've answered all three in just one very clear, concise sentence. Shout out Austin, who says he runs ads and he absolutely knows the pain of getting people to click the goddamn ad. Click it! Click the fucking link, you bozo! Right? Okay.
Dude, because you see this ad that have like big ass arrows pointing towards the link, and I'm like, well, now I don't want to click it because you told me to.
Yeah. Right. So then that's my first part of the plug and play. Then my second part of the plug and play. And remember, geez, like I said, we're just doing this off the top of my head. Might feel a bit rehearsed. I promise you it's not. We're gonna, like I said, we'll pick someone out in the audience shortly. The deliverables. Now, hear me out very carefully. Most people will fumble here because they'll mix unique differentiators and deliverables together. Yep. I want you to understand you shouldn't do this, right? So for me personally, when I talk or I'm thinking about deliverables, what I basically want to say is something along the lines of, I'm going to ensure that you don't need to change all of your media buying strategy. Just improve your creative and we will achieve better traffic, better click-through rate. And I want you to understand, again, this is just because I know the game so well. You see, the vast majority of people who create ads or run ads, they focus heavily on the media buying strategy. Okay, let me change the impressions, the target, all them different metrics, all the lovely things that people love to circle jerk about. Whereas I know if you change your ad, the actual creative, and you make that creative better, you will get better results. Right? So I'm being very, very specific with what I'm telling them. You can keep your media buying strategy the same. You don't need to increase your ad revenue. You see the deliverables coming out. You don't need to increase, and I use a different type of strategy, right? Some people talk about their deliverables. I tend to talk about the customer's deliverables, right? You not think you might need to change your, the amount of money you put into running an ad. You don't need to. You don't need to change your demographics. You don't need to do any of this. All you need to do is change your creative, and I will do that for you, and it will increase your traffic to whatever it is that you're trying to do, right?
Yep,
and again, it's extremely important, right? What are they getting? That's the core information on the deliverables. And what I like to do is almost, you could say Uno reverse, mini risk reverse, or whatever. What I like to do is say they are basically getting the one thing that they're not playing around with. And I know this through the research and everything that I've done. Again, anyone who's in the chat, who's running an e-com store, who is running ads, anything along those lines, they'll commonly find that everyone gets hooked on the ad messing around, like, and they don't actually focus on the creative itself. And that's what I'm giving them, something that they don't normally do.
Absolutely. And that's super cool too, because that's a very unique offer, right? And the reason why it's unique is because you've been in the game for a while, right? And this is why it's so important for you guys to do research, because if you find that one thing that actually moves the needle, right? Not, for example, we'll go with CTR, right? Your click-through rate. That's what's going to get them to your funnel. That's what's going to get them to your site. That's what's going to get them to actually buy your product. Everything else you're targeting, your demographic, your age, your audience, all that stuff has nothing to do with getting the customers that your ads are being shown to the actual funnel. So none of it matters. Let's focus on the stuff that actually moves the needle and not waste your time with a bunch of shit that doesn't. This is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And this is how it's going to make the biggest difference in the world. And then, Pope, you move on to what makes you better than anyone else.
And this is the part I love. Like, besides the fact that my ads are gangster, let's just go on the basis that, we're not showing any ads. We're not doing anything along those lines. And I need to, like, verbally communicate, or through written, I need to communicate what's the unique differentiator. That's where I will double down on Plus AI. I will literally double down the fuck on Plus AI. I would be like, hey, we use cutting edge AI techniques that allows us to create and manipulate ads in a matter of minutes. Literally, right? Because I will tell people that, hey, again, I understand the market, A/B testing, people need different creatives, they need to check what works. And for the vast majority of the people who run ads, one of the biggest difficulties they have, again, remember, geez, I'm always looking at the pain point from the foundation, right? Yep. One of the biggest problems that they have is having creatives create content fast enough for them to test ideas out in the market against things that are trending, things that are, whatever it is going on. And that's where I will turn around and say, hey, I'm not worried about that. In fact, I had a scenario I think it was yesterday, late in the night. Somebody turned around, they give me basically a voiceover to create an ad, and I was like, hey, look, it might be better if you just do this as an actual, you recording yourself, so we can get some dynamic movement and stuff like that. And they turned around and they said, hey, that's fine, I'll do that. Why don't you go ahead and start working on some of the elements with the VO, and then you can swap things in and out. And I literally replied back, not worried, our ads can be done in less than 5 hours. And then literally reply back, machines, right? So for me, and I think this is universal, G's, if you can tie speed in your unique differentiator as one of the core fundamentals, you will crush it. You will crush it always. And let me try and explain this to you. So where you heard Seth say phone people, like if you're doing calls, let's kind of switch to that there for a second. One thing you'll realize, because I remember when I was in call centers and door knocking, one of the things you'll realize in terms of competition, they take ages to answer a call. And even if you're on the call and they say they call you back, they don't call back. All of these things are related to speed. If you are the person that delivers the fastest, you literally have the best unique differentiator there is, period.
Yep. Absolutely.
And if this was thumbnails, right? Because you could follow the same logic. Like, I will increase your CTR for your thumbnails by 2%. My deliverables are, we're going to make sure every single one of your videos have a thumbnail, blah, blah, blah. Give me a second, geez. Sorry. Yeah, I just had a call by somebody who should be listening to this call. But anyway, then for my unique differentiator, I would literally be saying I use AI to generate custom bespoke thumbnails at the speed of light. If you need something changed on a thumbnail creative, I can get it done in less than 5 minutes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, speed is a big thing when it comes to unique differentiator. And then obviously you can carry on into like, hey, we use great tactics like CTAs, and we make sure, we always close on the video hooks. Or like, you can then give them the spiel about that. But usually the very first thing right at the top for me is always speed.
Yes. And again, it really depends on your ICP, right? Because sometimes most businesses, speed is going to be super, super important, right? So we can automatically start with speed. If you can beat everybody on speed, then you're going to be great. Then on top of that, you add another benefit for them is the fact that you utilize AI, so they're going to get access to new and upcoming technology. They're also going to get access to innovative technology that most people, especially their competition, probably isn't using. Because to be honest, especially on the ad side, I haven't seen much AI, almost at all. Then you move into the fact of how they relate to them, how it's going to benefit them. There's no business in the world that's ever going to turn down speed and something that makes them different than everybody else. Like I said, like if you can apply those two elements to literally whatever your niche is, you're gonna kill it.
And just on this, G's, right? When we talk about AI, that's specifically to the type of ads I create in the niche I'm in. Again, look, I want you to understand everything that you do ties back into the offer. So if, for example, the niche you're in is medicine, right? I always use that because medical ads tend to be slower. They tend to be more authentic. Like, let's just say the niche you're in is in like a caring environment. Well, you're not going to need flashing, AI and all this type of stuff. Then you've got to find different unique differentiators. Again, you still got to use speed, right? I always say speed is like the very first unique differentiator you need to implement. But the point I'm trying to make is you don't necessarily always need to mention AI. You need to mention what things are relevant in the niche that you're in.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And don't get confused, guys. Please do not get confused because it's a very simplistic concept. What niche you're in, what makes you different in your niche, and then what is something that's going to only be applicable to your niche and to you that is like nothing else. It's super simple.
All right, G. So then, risk reversal, my favorite.
You said that for every sector, Pope.
No, have I? Yeah. Okay. I love creating offers. Seth, you've seen me in real time do this with so many people. Oh, yeah. And I just love working through it. Like, I want you to understand, because when you work through an offer, you start to realize, that's why I was learning that. That's why we do that. And then when you put it all in, it just makes absolute sense. Like, many people, like, they don't do niche research, but you start to realize, holy fuck, I actually got to understand my niche if I really want to create an offer, right? Yeah. Love sales, man. Love sales. Anyways, risk reversal, my favorite. No, it is actually my favorite. Genuinely, because, like, for the vast majority of people, they struggle with a risk reversal. But for me, it's so simple because I'm a massive advocate of performance pay, a massive advocate of percentage pay, because I have one deep-rooted fundamental that aligns with Tate, which is meritocracy, right? Mm-hmm. I believe in what work you put in is what you're going to see come out. So for me, I'm scared of risk reversal. The vast majority of people are, right? So my risk reversal is as simple as this. I only get payment on the sale increase that you get. Right? Super simple. So how I would basically break this down is I'm going to increase your CTR by, 25%. And geez, one of the beautiful things you can use here is ChatGPT and literally write like, hey, if I increase someone's CTR on the ads by 25%, what's the approximate increase in sales that they'll have on the bottom of the funnel? And the tracking mechanism, like for example, if they click on the link, go to the website, it'll all be tracked through the behind the scenes of the business owner. And then I will literally say that, hey, I approximate an increase on your bottom line by 3%. And from that 3%, I would be happy to take a very small cut, as simple as that. Right. So I don't get paid unless you get paid. Unless you're making money, I don't get money. Simple as that.
Yep. And what you guys need to understand is you have to understand what you are actually offering first. Because in order to make a risk reversal that one makes sense for you as well as makes sense for your customer base, you have to understand what you're offering, right? It doesn't make sense for me to make a risk reversal where I only get paid when you get paid when I'm selling you a fucking blender. Yeah. Right? That makes no sense. But if I'm offering ad creation or something that increases your CTR or something that increases your bottom line, I only get paid when you get paid, right? That's basically what you're saying. Is at the end of the day, I'm based off the data and research that we've done, we've increased sales on an average of 15% over the past, 20 stores that we've worked with or 20 businesses that we've worked with or whatever you want to use, right? And we've had an increase of around 15% in sales. All I'm asking for is 5% of that increase that is directly correlated to the implementations that we're giving you right now. Right? Literally makes it impossible. What business in the right mind? So, Pope, let me ask you this. You have a business, right? If I came to you and I said, I'm going to increase your sales by 20%, all I'm asking for is 5% of that.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Why would I deny that?
Why would you deny that? So you're going to say, okay, cool. I'm going to lose out on 20% increase in sales because I want 20%. I don't want 15%. Get out of here, bro. Ain't no way. Well, let me just time this kid out for just trolling the hell out of the chat.
That's fine. Do that. Look, geez, there's massive value in this call. I think for the vast majority of people, if you're not listening, like, you're super going to fail. Like, we've got one person who just tagged Tate, which is surreal, right? All right. Anyways, let's get back to it. Like, Q4S, I'm not going to take questions. I want you to take questions when we've done all the examples. So we're going to do another AI example. Then I'm going to pick someone from the chat. But yeah, let me just go ahead and touch on this particular question because it has stood out, right? Someone said, doesn't that performance pay model, which is what I heavily push people to get to, rely on client honesty? It does. But I want you to understand that I've commonly found that people who don't necessarily want to trust their client, usually there's something shady about them. Like, I have this very clear theory in my mind, right? If I'm worried that I'm doing something and I believe somebody's going to rob me because of this particular scenario, then the truth of the matter is, and just give me a second, G's. Dasha, if you keep fucking around, I promise you I will ban you on the spot. That's the second warning now. Right? Okay. Yeah, if I have this conscious thought in my mind that this person's gonna, rob me or something along those lines, is a thief, it's probably because I'm a thief. I have that type of mindset. Yep. I usually give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And look, I might lose out. I might end up with a bad client. There might have been red flags that I ignored. I missed out, all these type of stuff. The truth of the matter is, I really don't care because I probably got good volume in. I managed to talk to them, conversate with them over a whole month. It's a lesson learned. All of these different things. I give that opportunity to clients, man. I really don't care. And you know what? Sorry, Seth. One last thing for the vast majority of you. Let's just say something goes wrong, right? Something goes wrong. They don't want to pay me, blah, 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 all that stuff down the line. The experience I got of doing the creative in that field. Did I steal your point, Seth? You don't look funny, bro. No,
bro. Like that is such a good point. That's literally what I was going to say.
Come on, give it to him. You can double down on it. Double down on it, bro.
Look, guys, at the end of the day, if you're worried about it, then that mostly you need to internally look at yourself, right? A lot of times when we don't like something about someone, it's because we are that someone. A lot of times when we don't like something, it's because we're mirroring exactly what we don't like. So when you start judging people, first of all, you need to look internally and actually understand exactly what you're doing. And then maybe you'll understand, okay, cool. Maybe people are the problem. Maybe I'm the fucking problem. Because a lot of times you are. You're letting your ego get in the way to be able to actually grow. So another thing, when we're talking about business, you're talking about working with a client. Okay, so what if they screw you over? You literally got the entire process of actually going through the sale and actually building out a client and actually doing all these other things. The amount of knowledge and experience that you have gotten from working with that client, and on the back end, now you know how to safeguard yourself properly and go through all of that, right? So if I have another client and you're recognizing these same red flags, do you think that me and Pope just figured out this thing one day? We woke up and we knew how shit worked. No, it happens through trials and tribulations. It happens through going back and forth and losing on some things and winning on other things, and then learning from our wins and losses, and then maximizing our wins over and over and over again, and minimizing our losses by putting those KPIs in place to ensure that we do everything. All right. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
All right, okay, so we've done ads, we've done ad creation, and geez, look, everything I walked you through, you could do exactly with short form content, long form content, thumbnails, whatever it is you're creating. Maybe you're doing AI website creation. All you've got to do is figure out what I've explained to you from an ad creation perspective, but just put yourself in the shoes of someone that needs a website, someone that needs thumbnails, someone that needs short form content. Let's talk about that just very briefly. Like just off the top of my head, the most people that are interested in short form content is because they're trying to make their brand grow, right? So they're actually heavily interested in getting views, getting traction to their social media. So that's probably where I'm going to be putting my, offer or creating my offer around that. So we're not going to deep dive all of them. Look, geez, plug and play. The idea is, what did I say for 2025? It is to ensure that you lot learn to think outside the box and really start to apply your brain with these type of plug and play scenarios. Let's move over to the ones that many G's are waiting for, AI automation.
There we go. Let's
right. And what we want to do here is, we should have got Cam on the call.
Oh yeah.
Should we get Cam on the call? He can come here. We can make him fucking create an offer for AI automation. Right, Cam, are you there? You know what? Seth, give it to him. Let me get Cam on.
Oh.
Why am I using all the brain points here? Where's Cam? And you know what, geez, for lesson of the week, next week, by the way, geez, I've got a very interesting lesson for you. It's about brain points. The theory is, I think it's super applicable. Every single person has a certain amount of brain points. As you get more experience in the game, as you get more, knowledge, taking action, you increase your amount of brain points. But every single day you have X amount of brain points. And every time you use those brain points, eventually you get to a zero, your brain's fried, and anything you're trying to concentrate on doesn't work. I've just messaged Cam, like, get on now.
What's crazy is, for you guys that work part of Black Ops, you get these lessons firsthand when they come off the dome. Let me tell you, the power that you get from these lessons are absolutely insane. So if you're not listening to these lessons, I swear you guys are missing out on so many different things, because the way that it unlocks your brain. And Pope actually, he talked about this a long time ago. I can't remember exactly, but it was one of our capo calls, and we were having this, and he gave this energy. And I promise you, this one little, it's not little, this one lesson literally changed my trajectory of how I think about things. And it allowed me to, and it allowed me to honestly value myself more, right? Because I was always the guy, I was always the fixer. I was always the guy that could fix everything. I never cared about, losing fucking sleeps, whatever. Now that I'm getting older, I'm like, shit, man, I need a nap.
But brain points, bro. Somebody said, I need a call. You're not burnt out, you're crispy.
Yep, exactly. And it's like knowing where to put my energy and what to put my energy on, or my brain points, sorry. Weird, it's almost like they're all intertwined. So knowing where to put my brain points and where I can get brain points and who's going to just quote leech my brain points is super important. And once you understand that concept, bro, it's a freaking game changer. So I want to say live. Thank you, Pope.
All right, okay. So Cam clearly is hiding, even though he's online. Right? No, he's joined.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, bro. You shouldn't have joined, man, because I know you made me listen to the call, and we're going to test you now.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't.
So what the call is about, it's about creating an offer, which a lot of students struggle with. We'll walk you through this plug and play, like as you're doing it. I did it for ad creation. I was going to do it for AI, but I thought, why not do it with you, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to show the students that none of this is rehearsed. Every single thing, we're trying to show, if you really pay attention here, like you could create an offer straight off the bat. So we're going to work with you, Cam, right? Yeah. The offer or the service that you're doing is lead capture AI bots, right? Or AI chat agents, whatever you want to call it. The first part of your offer should be the foundation. It should grab the attention of the person that you're reaching out to. You want to try and say, what is the result that you're going to achieve for them? And that particular part has zero to do with you, right? So I heard some typing there. I don't know if you loaded up ChatGPT behind you. Obviously, you are the AI guy, right? AI prodigy. So so what is your promise?
What is my promise for lead capture?
Yeah, lead capture AI agent.
You increase your conversions, because every lead that comes to your website that you aren't capturing is missed opportunities.
That's nice. That's real good.
Look at that juicy brain.
Yeah, that's it. That's real good. Shit, I'd even kind of say that might sound a lot better than the ad one. Damn.
Well, the beautiful thing about Cam's offer right there is, if you notice, he said without the biggest pain point, right? That's a huge thing, right? Is the result their dream state, and then without that biggest pain point.
Yeah. So Cam, next part, number 2, the deliverables, right? So what are they actually getting? Like, can you list 3 specific things that is in your offer? So you're saying you're going to create a lead capture agent, and you said your foundation was every lead that they have to their website that they don't capture is a loss. What are they actually getting though?
They're getting a chat agent that can not only answer questions about their brand and their specific brand's tone of voice, but they're also getting something that's going to collect that user's information that's interested. And then the third thing is it's going to enter that into whatever CRM they want. If they don't have a CRM, then I would provide that. And you can even add other things that connect up to it. So like, hey, maybe we automatically add them into like a system 3 outreach or something like that.
Nice. So obviously Cam would word it slightly different. He's trying to explain to you. You wouldn't say system 3 to a customer, but the concept there is that, hey, we can even automate the retargeting of people, right? So yeah, absolutely. So then Cam, what's your unique differentiator? Why are you better than everyone else offering lead capture systems and agents and stuff out there, right? Because AI is not the only way of, capturing leads. Why are you better?
Well, no one can make an AI agent as good as we do. So no one can make it output information in the specific brand's tone of voice and as fast as they can. Also speed, we can get this done in 24 hours.
Let's go. Told you, man, speed is the one. Yeah. Especially if you're in AI, like saying speed is surreal. And then I guess, Cam, you kind of touched on it, right? You mentioned something about no one can create, I wouldn't necessarily say no one can create a chat agent as good as us. I would say no one can create a chat agent that has a personality representative of your brand.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Which people can't as well, by the way. It's very difficult.
Yeah. So there's that, and then of course, like, we're trying to keep it in this solid offer. But I would go on the sales call and then try to understand their pain point more and like what they tell me, and then I would find out ways that my offer would be unique to them more, because that's really where I'm going to be a unique differentiator. Is they're going to have some specific problems that I'm going to be able to pinpoint and solve and say I can solve with my specific solution on the spot.
Yeah. All right. And then last one of your offer, Cam, risk reversal. How are you going to remove doubts? What makes me compelled to go with your offer?
Yeah, so you can do this a couple different ways if it's a chat agent, but it has to apply directly to the promise. And the promise was, we're going to increase conversions because you basically miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if they have their baseline conversions, they say, hey, 1 month of this agent on your site, if you don't increase your conversions by X amount, whatever number we agree upon, then you get your money back completely free if you're not happy with it.
Can you do money back?
Either money back, or you could test it out for a trial. One of the two.
But I hate fucking money back, bro.
I know it's painful, but it forces you to we have to deliver this. So as long as
Cam, you're a bit on that slight wavelength. You're very with the students. Like, I get paid. Me, I'm just performance based. Yeah. But is there a way to? And again, we're just brainstorming ideas. You're getting a live sales brainstorm between us. Is there a way to put percentage of sales type of performance on a lead capture agent?
Well, if you're tracking any leads that come from the website, then potentially yes. But again, like there's for performance based, I would do something like system 3 performance based. Doesn't make sense. You're directly getting them leads in the door, and you're able to track that because you have control over system 3 and all that. But like you have to have a very good relationship with someone performance based for clients and stuff like that. If you're just bringing people in like leads on a website, I don't know. I don't prefer performance based, but you can do that. It's just very dodgy if it's like people website traffic basically.
Yeah.
Website traffic, you have to check if it's coming okay through your bot. Is the bot really the thing that caused the conversion, or they just happen to stop by the bot? Like it's just muddy waters. So
yeah, that is definitely a relationship thing, and that's more high ticket, right? Because like, geez, I want you to understand anyone who's using a strategy that they bring in a large volume of traffic to sell, and then they're creating this offer. Cam's absolutely right. Like 100%. I really think like performance based, and I didn't mention this on the ads, which is why I'm going back to this, is heavily related to your relationship with that person and how high ticket it is, right? Because a high ticket offer usually takes like maybe 2 or even 3 months to nurture a really good relationship where you can say, okay, performance, percentage of sales. Most people don't want to give it up, but yeah, it's down to your sales technique.
Yeah. So like money back, paper performance could be like you only pay us after you see a measurable increase in lead flow. Double guarantee. Like you could say 2 things like, okay, we'll set everything up. If you don't see these results, we'll refund you and pay. Like I wouldn't do this, but pay for the next month's lead gen for stuff. I'm probably sure you advise against that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to the confidence in your offers, right? I know you and I have talked offline. A lot of people tend to do like the super risk reversal, right? It's a double risk reversal, and they're just like, if you don't get the results in X amount of time, blah blah blah, we'll refund your money and pay you like $2,000 or some shit like that. Like it's absolutely insane. I'm like, but okay, whatever. Anyway, it makes it more irresistible. I mean, if you have confidence in what you're gonna do, cool. When it comes to a chatbot conversion system, I mean, you can simply just say, if your chatbot doesn't increase conversions in 45 days, we'll rebuild it for free, or we'll rebuild it and make it optimized until it does. Whatever you want to do. Like there's so many different routes that we can go down with, especially utilizing chatbots. But again, you're like you said, you are kind of getting into muddy waters just because the fact depends on how much tracking you're doing, how much website, how much site visitors they have per month, how much all these other different things. But if you're doing a tangible result such as like lead generation or something like that, you can offer an increase in their lead generation. But again, guys, I want to say, like, when you're saying these things in your offer, this also directly ties into your sales pitch. And I'm going to go off the rails for a little bit. Is saying, like, when you're saying these things in your offer, you need to know your offer because these are questions that you're going to be asking in your sales call. So
yeah, that's all objections, right?
Yeah. So if you're saying, hey, I'm going to increase your lead generation by this amount in this time, you need to know what that number is. So when you get on a sales call, you say you're going to increase it by 25% based over a month, but they're already making 300 leads per month. Do you have the actual capabilities to increase their leads by 25%? Or are you just saying that, right? You have to figure out the information to ensure that your
research. Exactly. You got to understand your niche. You got to understand what the average business even does in your niche, right? And let's not even go down that rabbit hole because I feel like we're entering the realms of KPI conversation, right? And we do have sales call. We've got sales masterclass coming on KPIs. We're going to blow your lot's mind out from emails to video to even what we're discussing now in terms of funnel, in terms of it's massive. We've got those calls scheduled. So I do want to wrap up, but before I wrap up, we're going to keep our promise. One person in the chat. We are going to take your business model, and you've got 3 heads right here. You've got me, you've got Seth, and you've got Cam. I would probably say maybe some of the best brains in TRW. I don't know. Anyways, I want every single one of you to tag us and tell us what your business is. Between the 3 of us, we're going to take the most interesting business that we see, and we're going to go ahead and show you again in real time how you can plug and play this. So if I haven't given you enough evidence, G, of this plug and play model, I don't know what else to say. We're going to do it one last time. G's, this in real time, we've showed you how you can apply it for a creation business model, how you can apply it for AI business model, and now we're going to do it for one of your business models. So G's, don't be shy now. Let's get it out. Like saying something like SaaS, that doesn't help. Like we actually need some level of detail. Cam, if you see anything that interests you, Seth, if you see anything that interests you, let's work one.
Just see some funny ones.
Yeah.
Someone said meme coin website offer.
Yeah, that good.
And I don't want to do that because, like I said, geez, tomorrow I've got the call with Professor Sillard. We'll be talking about the trenches. And we actually got a whole course, which is Seth, me, Cam, and Sillard coming to both campuses about meme coins in specific. Someone tagged Ace, which is surreal. Lost. Okay. Someone says e-commerce website with Shopify integrated for backend. We sell fish food. I'm not excited. I'm not excited about it. I want to feel excited about something. Yeah. That doesn't mean your business is no good, by the way. I just look for something just kind of off key, just for us to go ahead and show you how applicable this is.
Let's see. Car dealership, travel agencies.
If you got travel, like, most of these you should have offers already built, man.
Yeah.
And this is why, boys, I told you, this is why this call is so fucking important. It's unbelievable at the amount of people that don't have an actual offer for their business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm seeing a lot on like going off the websites, like building fast websites.
Yep.
Should we just do websites? No, I don't want to because that's part of the course for the meme coins content, and AI. I don't want to do that.
I'm seeing a lot of stuff for the AI phone caller.
Yeah.
Should we do phone caller?
I'm down.
Yeah.
There's
tons of things, tons of different things you can put a phone caller for. I guess we could say something inbound.
Yeah.
You want to do inbound?
Yeah, we could do like an inbound caller for maybe like a restaurant or something.
An AI inbound phone caller. All right.
No, Lord Lucas is even here. How you doing, Lucas? That's just me kind of pulling it on him. Anyways, so we're sorry, we said phone callers, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do
you know
AI.
What? I want to do this. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. I am the professor, right? You professor, it's me. I'm the boss. Right, okay. I want to do, and you know what? Shout out Maxine. I didn't even see you put it in, which I'm super surprised. I thought you'd be one of the first people in for your candle shop. We're gonna do AI phone caller for candle shops. That's what we're gonna do. We sell an AI phone caller service for people who own candle shops. Or selling candles.
Candle shops, people, okay.
And I'm really thinking about this, Cam, right? And even Seth, I actually think that what we're going to create here for AI phone caller is probably applicable to anything. It doesn't matter whether it's a candle shop, doesn't matter whether it's...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's super simple, especially any type of shop, any type of I don't even know what to call it, like just normal shop that sells a product, right? It's
let's just do that, right? Okay, AI phone caller for a shop that sells products, right? There's loads out there. All right, okay, so the promise. You want to grab the attention. How do you grab the attention with AI phone caller? Inbound, we're doing inbound calls?
Yep. So we're probably going to end up focusing on you don't need to hire extra staff. You're not going to miss any sales when you're actually in the store. You're selling your product or service. So you're not going to miss those calls that are inbound and coming. So you're going to be able to get more people on the phone. You're going to be able to automate their answers. You're going to be able to take the orders. You're going to be able to provide, product recommendations. You're going to do all that stuff. And on top of that, you're going to be able to do it 24/7.
Yeah, I actually think that is, from all of that list, and Cam, you can correct us if you're wrong, right? But for me, I think that one of the biggest pain points is missing calls.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. It's increasing your successful phone touch points without hiring extra phone reps, right?
Bro's hot. Woo! Say that shit to me again, Cam.
Increase your successful phone touch points without hiring extra phone reps. And it just goes back to the whole lead conversion. Like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you have people calling your phone and you're not answering, that's just missed opportunities right there. So that directly affects the bottom line.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what's the deliverable? So that, look, geez, straight away, we've got the foundation in place. Again, I'm showing you plug and play. Use this. You really need to use what we've explained to you here. Okay, the deliverables then. So what are they actually getting with the AI phone caller?
Number one, you program a virtual caller to reflect the brand's tone and messaging, right? So it's going to be able to answer all questions about candles or whatever the product is. Maybe if you wanted to program it, you could program it to be a little bit salesy, to upsell. Hey, I think this product would be great for you if you like this type of scent, and it would be paired very well with this, right? So that's very big, especially if you're doing this kind of thing in like restaurants, for example. Let's say you have a phone caller placing orders. A lot of people want the phone caller to then say, hey, I noticed you ordered this. This side would pair great with that, and also maybe this drink, you want that? And that's a really easy way to bottom line increase conversions as well.
Absolutely. And then another thing is obviously, one of the most important things is obviously doing 24/7, right? So even when the shop's closed, you're gonna have customers that can call in anytime, no matter what, even after your shop's closed. AI phone callers can be able to pick up that call. You're not gonna have to hire a human to be able to work 24/7 because AI does sleep, right?
And you know what? The fact that you said that, Seth, gives us a perfect opportunity to insert the dream state, right? Just here. So we're talking about deliverables. Seth just mentioned taking phone calls, during the night whilst you sleep, whilst the shop's closed. The dream state here. Imagine walking into your shop in the morning with a huge amount of orders that you need to process whilst your AI caller is still taking more orders on. Right?
Imagine not being able to open up the shop because you have so many orders that you have to process overnight that you have to open up an hour late just to be able to process all the sales that you just made overnight while you were sleeping.
Oh Lord Jesus, I'm having your AI phone caller now.
and another deliverable, right? Almost like as big as the callers itself. It goes into KPIs, right? If you're able to analyze every transcript of every phone call and identify why are people calling my shop, what products are they interested in, what makes them uninterested in products, why didn't I close that sale, you're able to track all that information and then program that back into the AI to increase it even more conversions and give you insights about your business as a whole and how you can improve it. Like, that's just as valuable as the phone caller itself.
Yeah, that's even freaking unique differentiator right there, right? Because I mean, where do you get that information from normally?
Yeah, you don't. And honestly, that data analysis, not a lot of people think to do it, not a lot of people know how to do it, right? So
a lot of times in sales industry, right, we track these sales calls, which are most of the time outbound, or if you have a specified sales team. But most of the time in resale shops, you don't have that. Your sales team is in person, it's in the store. So if you're able to optimize on the phone as well, because a lot of times in-person sales, you're going to sell a bit differently than you would on the phone. So you might need to optimize the AI phone caller a bit differently than how you're used to selling, just based off of the customer inquiries and feedback, based off your analytics that you track, and you're able to optimize that offer for all these other different things.
Yeah, 100%.
So the last part, and it is my favorite, risk reversal.
Yeah. It's an easy one. So I mean, you could, like originally we talked about, okay, what's the promise? Increasing successful touch points. You could say something like, if you don't see at least a 40% increase in successful phone touch points, we'll refund the money that you paid or something like that.
Yep.
Or like a zero down trial. Like for something like a phone call, it's very cheap for you. If you want to just give them, hey, you can try this for 2 weeks. If it doesn't meet your standards, you can cancel with no cost. That's another one.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And one thing about that is you focus. I love it because you focus on the KPI that you can actually deliver upon. Right. Yep. It's not something like you didn't guarantee an increase in sales, you didn't guarantee or anything like that. You focus on something that 100% that the AI phone caller is going to increase, which is 100% touch points on your customer base and being able to provide relevant information. Because when it comes down to it, most of the time customers don't buy not because of the fact that they don't want to buy. If they're calling in, it means they're interested in your product in the first place. It means they're already saying, hey, I'm interested in the product. Most of the time they just have a few questions. They just want to figure something out, and they don't want to go on a website. They don't want to do other stuff. They want to call into the store, get the information directly from the horse's mouth, and then they'll be ready to buy. So if you have someone that can actually answer that call 24/7, you're not going to miss those sales. You're not going to be able to say that. Now sometimes you're going to get normal calls where it's just like, hey, are you open? Now you can add another touch point on that and be like, hey, even if you weren't open at that time, now you have someone that's dedicated. You have an AI agent that's dedicated 24/7 so that you don't have to stop what you're doing and stop selling and stop increasing your sales to answer the simple questions such as, hey, are you still open?
Yeah. And I think, geez, when it comes to offers in general, like, so let's switch back now. We look in real time. We've done that for you on 3 different business models. That's how you can plug and play this offer. But I want to talk about offers in general, and let's get some of your questions, and G's will probably answer about maybe 3 to 5 questions in depth. So go ahead, tag us in the chat right now. But separate to that, in offers in general, I think the vast majority of people where they fail on is they don't do enough perspective in, right? I need you to put yourself in the shoes of the business owner or the person that you're planning to sell the product to or the service to, right? So really, really say to yourself, like, what does this mean for that business? Like, I give you an example with everything Seth just said. Like, I was sitting there and I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. If I was a business owner and I no longer need to worry about calls, all I now need to do is try and drive as much traffic as possible to the caller.
Yep.
The caller will handle the rest. And I just need to get orders in, right? It gives me that time back to go and focus on what I actually want to do, right? The sales of my candles or whatever the product is. Like, and just having that mindset, G's, like being able to say to yourself, okay, I'm selling this service. What does it actually do for the person I'm trying to sell it to? Yeah. And then shape that around your offer as well.
Yep. Another thing is, I mean, this directly correlates to your front end as well, right? So if you know that you have that ace in your bag, right? You have that ace that you can pull out and be like, damn, okay, cool. I can push people towards the AI phone caller so that they're not coming to the store, or I can keep people traffic, depending on other stuff. Now I can make ads specifically with a CTA of, hey, just give us a call, right? So now I can drive people even further to calling the AI phone caller to free up my time even more.
Yep. All right, geez, let's take some questions. I'm just going to answer one quickly straight off the bat. So he's asking about, like, what happens? Are we not going to encounter legal issues if we guarantee results? At no point in this entire call, again, this is the fact that you're not listening to any of the professors. No point in this call did we say we guarantee you X amount, right? I say we can get you to 25% CTR percentage. And that's the idea of the risk reversal. If we don't get you there, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 right? That's a super easy one. You're not signing any contracts or anything along those lines. Just stop circle jerking G's and get to goddamn work, get your offers created and get it out the door. All right, okay, Let's actually take some proper questions now. Yep. So
I've actually had 2 people ask this question, and it's a pretty good question. Actually, you guys are perfect for this. So it's an objection basically saying people buy from other humans. They would get turned off by talking to an agent or talking to a robot or talking to an AI.
Yeah. Well, bro, what happens when you call, like, let's say you call a big restaurant right now, or you call, like, an insurance company or a phone provider, bro, who are people talking to? They're talking to those robots, but they're not AI. They're those super annoying, like, yo, manager, cancel card, cancel member. Like, people get so frustrated talking to those things. These businesses already have those pre-programmed conversation robot talkers. Everyone hates them. If you have an AI phone conversationalist, that's actually smart. We're not making dumb AI phone callers. That's smart. You can answer questions and get the job done. People are going to be more than happy with that. And remember, if it's something that requires more attention, that, hey, AI literally absolutely can't do this, it can always forward it to a human. And that not only makes it so you need less phone reps, but it makes sure the humans are only answering the calls that they actually need to.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, come on, G's, you're really not thinking properly. Again, like I said to you, you need to start thinking outside the box. How many times have you heard this? Press 1 if you'd like to. Press 2 if you would. And you're pressing 2 and the fucking goddamn thing is still not pulling you through. And I'll give you a little bit of a hack here, G's, by the way. I was having some issues with my internet to the point like it was seriously pissing me off. The amount of times I heard that fucking annoying switchboard bro, I got to a point where I said cancel. Like if you're on one of those scenarios, and this is just a random fact, and you're trying to get through to a human because this fucking switchboard is killing you, just say to the switchboard you're canceling, and you'll be redirected to a human relatively fast.
Yep. And you also have to understand that these AI phone callers are not, you're pre-programmed. They only have certain capabilities. They only have certain limitations. Like this is a person that you're programming to talk. So think of a salesman that you're literally programming how to respond to human beings, right? When you talk to ChatGPT, right, it doesn't just give you the same answer over and over again. It answers exactly what you're asking, which is exactly what the AI phone caller is going to do. It's going to answer the questions that you're asking. It's going to stop talking when you cut it off. It's going to actually have a conversation with you. It's not going to say the same, like some bullshit answer when you ask it, hey, how do I do this? It's going to give you the answer to how you do that. Not just, please press 1 to talk to a human. Like, no, it's not going to happen that way. Don't confuse programmable, a programmable just program, right, versus an actual conversation with something that you created.
Yeah, and don't underestimate these. Like when people would get that frustration of like, bro, I'm so pissed off, I just want to talk to someone. That's enough to lead people to cancel. And you know, for a business owner, that's big, right? Because they know they're losing a lot of people because of frustration. So if you have a system that can take away that frustration and intelligently hand off conversations and answer queries and perform actions, like these AI phone callers, if you've been through the course, they can perform actions. They can take orders. They can reserve tables. They can do any functions that you want. Right? They're intelligent. Then that's going to give a much better customer satisfaction. There's a reason that so many businesses are focused on customer satisfaction because it reduces churn rate. And you know, guys, everyone, any good business owner wants to reduce churn rate. So
So I'm super shocked at the amount of people trying to offload their thinking again. Like I've got people saying, oh, but if everyone's going to say that, then what should I say? That's the game. I want you to understand that's the game, G's. Ultimately, as much as we're all together, as much as we're all in the real world, it's still PvP. When you go out there, you've got to figure out what is going to be your unique differentiator. The beautiful thing is that we, Seth, me, Cam, are open about telling you this is what we use, this is what we do, right? Like, geez, stop trying to offload your thinking. I swear to God, I cannot wait for Sunday to come. I'm literally going to sit there with the mic and I'm going to give you, I promise you, the longest lesson of your life about brain points. Stop trying to rob my brain points, right? Use some of your own.
And remember, guys, the one thing, I gave you guys a huge piece of gold earlier in this conversation when we were going through how the offer is structured. Call your competition. See what they're saying. If you want to be unique, you have to find out what people are saying, right? So if you say, oh man, I got this, it's going to sound good, then you call 5 stores and they're all saying exactly what you just thought, well, then you're not unique, right? But we're not going to be able to, if you're in, there's thousands of different niches. I'm not an expert in 1,000 different niches because all of us have one niche, one service. When I go into a new sales job, I find everything there is to know about that niche. That's the only way that I'm going to be able to effectively sell it, because if you don't know your product, you don't know what you're doing. You have to know your product better than anyone else. And that means doing competition research. There's a huge part of a KPI that we're going to discuss in another masterclass, is knowing your product and doing your competition research to be able to effectively move forward and answer these questions that you guys are asking because you don't want to go out and do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's take one more question. There's a massive Ask for a Rant channel. I might need to do one, but I just don't want to do it because I might get carried away, right? Might make some people cry. Anyone who said AI is shit might make them. Anyways, let's take one more serious question, G's, and then we're going to close off the call. You, Cam, Seth, you can pick.
Let's see. So someone said, is it fine to be upfront for the first cold email? The promise, deliverable, differentiator. Yes, you want all of that in your email. One short sentence for each. And you're not going to say, this is my promise, this is my that. But that should be your email outreach. Hey, personalization, first line, promise, problem statement, what you're going to deliver, why it's different, and then last, your risk reversal. That's the basic formula.
And it's beautiful that you picked that question as well, Cam, right? Because this is going to lead us heavily into the next sales masterclass, which is about KPIs. And gee, sometimes it's about testing, right? Let's just say you do run with that and it doesn't do what you want it to do, right? You've got to test different things. But I promise you this, doesn't matter what part of the sales process, whether it's the first email, whether it's on the call, whether it's even at the close, whether it's IRL, whether it's on the phone, at some point, you will need to explain your offer.
Yep.
At some point. Right? And the vast majority of you, sorry, Seth, before you go, and the vast majority of you do not have an offer. Your offer should be so intrinsic in your brain that if I said to you, hey, what does your business do? You literally can spit out verbatim.
Yep. And we're talking about, if we're talking about email, right? I can say all of this exactly like what Cam said in less than 100 words. Right? So it's not too wordy. It's not all these other things, right? For example, I was working earlier when we were talking about different industries and such, right? So I'm gonna go in home decor. So this is 96 words exactly. I help home decor and furniture stores capture every potential sale without losing customers to unanswered calls. You'll get AI powered call assistant, answers product questions, and help customers choose the right furniture. You have automated order processing and real-time inventory updates. You have 24/7 call handling and capture after-hours customers, and this can directly integrate with every CRM that you have. Unlike standard automated menus, our AI actually helps customers choose the products, answer those common questions, and complete their purchases on the spot. And if your phone orders don't increase in 30 days, we'll refine your AI at no cost. That's my email, and it's 96 words. You're literally clarifying your offer. Now, you can create an expanded version of your offer that you kind of reference when you're doing these calls, when you're actually making an in-depth offer for your product or service, and then you just can make it more concise when you're saying an email. Boom, beautiful.
We're going to be talking about KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and we're going to be specific. We're going to be talking about KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and we're going to be specifically talking about email outreach. Why are we talking about email outreach? I hear some of you say, well, one thing we do in the Content Creation Plus AI Campus is performance outreaches. You should be creating bespoke content, which you are sending to people via email. And then, of course, we have our entire email outreach strategy over in the AI Automation Campus. So it makes absolute sense that you lot are monitoring what is going on with your email outreach. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get the infamous whiteboard up. Seth, let's hit it, bro.
Yeah, let's go. So first step we all got to take, right? If we're sending email outreach or sending those performance outreaches, what's the first step we have to take? Well, obviously we have to first send 100 emails, right? And now disclaimer here, everything is going to be based off 100 emails. Now I have a lesson in sales lesson called the rule of 100. There's a reason that lesson is divided into 4 parts because it relates to every aspect of the sales process, especially when you are sending emails. You have to first start with 100 emails. Then and only then will these KPIs actually relate to what you were doing at that time. So we've done a massive amount of back-end research to be able to get you guys accurate metrics as well as metrics that I've utilized in the sales process, folks utilize in his sales process. And we've given you guys an amazing thing of the KPIs that actually matter, not all the bullshit that doesn't matter that most people is going to be like, you need to track this, and this. No, you really don't need to track that much. You only need actually about 4 email metrics to track. They're super simple. The first one's gonna be your delivery rate. Second one's gonna be your bounce rate, then your open rate, and then your click-through rate. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna be going over this in detail, so don't worry if you're not really sure what that means. We're gonna be explaining all this soon. So when you're unleashing the power of email, it is in the data. Email outreach is not just about sending those messages. It's about making each email count. When you get those metrics right, you're going to transform all of this cold outreach into warm, revenue-generating conversations. So we're going to be zeroing again in those 4 KPIs. So it's delivery rate, bounce rate, open rate, and then click-through rate. These are the numbers that will tell you if you're truly connecting with your prospects and driving results versus just sending emails that don't do anything. So that's the introduction, guys. Super, super simple. Right. So to start off, our first metric that we're going to track is our delivery rate. What is this? The delivery rate is super simple. It's the percentage of emails that have successfully landed in your recipient's inbox. Now, this matters because it's a high delivery rate is the bedrock of your outreach, right? If your emails aren't delivered, then nothing else matters. It's the first sign of list health and sender reputation, right? So it's super, super simple. And you have to have consistent performance and proper authentication to keep you in that inbox. And you also have to make sure you're outreaching to quality prospects. This is why the first step when you're reaching out to prospects is actually doing research on them to ensure that it's not just some dumbass on the street that has a LinkedIn profile. We want to reach out to actual businesses with actual emails, not just a info email, right? That doesn't go to anybody's email. It goes to some support team, which you're not going to get anybody else. So you want to find an accurate email, right? That's on delivery rate. Super, super, super simple. Now, when we're talking about that KPI, our delivery rate is super important because the average industry delivery rate is very high. It might be higher than most of you think. It's actually between 95 and 98%. But why this is important? Because this reflects the percentage of emails that actually successfully land in your recipient's inbox. And a well-maintained outreach rate always is going to result in higher delivery rate, right? So that's the first portion. We talk about delivery rates. We talk about bounce rates. This is something that is kind of important and it goes hand in hand with our delivery rate because this is the percentage of emails that don't reach your recipients due to delivery failures. Sometimes you'll get a response on your email saying it's not, this inbox doesn't exist anymore or something else that can also be considered inside of your bounce rate as well. Now there's 2 different types of bounces. The first bounce is called a hard bounce. And this is like a permanent issue, which is where most of the time you get a reply saying, hey, this is an invalid email address. This means you can't really fix that unless you have a different email. Now, there's also called soft bounces. And these are your temporary glitches, like full inboxes, server issues, so on and so forth. When you get a soft bounce, all you can do is just resend the email. There's nothing you can really do about that. A hard bounce, you can find a different email, you can do all these other different things. But a high bounce rate not only reduces your campaign's reach, but it also tends to damage your sender reputation. It's really saying, hey, I need to take a step back. I need to look at who I'm sending these emails to. I need to make sure they're actual people with actual businesses. Again, not some dumbass on the street. So when we're talking about our bounce rate, we're looking at that. A typical industry standard for our bounce rate is about 2% or less. Now, why this is important? Because if we have a higher bounce rate, it tends to damage our sender reputation. And obviously, that's going to make our delivery rate go down as well. This represents the amount of emails that couldn't be delivered, and we need to keep this number as low as possible. Now, a lot of times we want to refresh our outreach messages as well as our outreach list, who we're outreaching to, and then we can also utilize some verification tools that is taught within the courses to vet who you're outreaching to ensure that they're actual prospects. That's bounce rate. The third one is your open rate. Now, this is something that's a bit controversial, but it is probably one of the most important things that you can do when you're talking about KPIs for emails. Now, this is the percentage of emails that are opened by your recipients. So when we're talking, okay, if our open rate is high, that means our delivery rate is automatically high, right? Because they're seeing the email, they're opening the email. Excuse me. Your open rate is a direct reflection of how compelling your subject lines are. I'm going to say that again. Your open rate is a direct reflection of how compelling your subject lines are. Because if your emails aren't being opened, then your messages don't even have a chance to make an impact. If your emails are getting open, that means you have a good subject line, you have all this other stuff, which then leads me into the next portion, which is actually your click-through rate. So if your delivery rate is high, if your open rate is high, and everything else is good, a good test at what good emails are is your click-through rate. So a lot of you guys are attaching some type of free value, whether that be a YouTube link, whether that be a streamable link, a Google Drive link, or they're playing it directly in email. All those can be tracked as well through a click-through rate. This is the percentage of delivered emails where the recipient or your prospect is actually clicking on one or more links. So the CTR, or your click-through rate, is the pulse of your email's CTA, right? So if you have a good email, the content is good, the CTA is good, then your click-through rate, is going to be naturally higher. Now, the industry standard for this is about 2 to 5%, which is a lot lower than you guys think. But 2 to 5% is basically the people that say, how can you actually go through, click through your landing page, click through the free value that you're sending. This is the actual percentage measurement of people who click the link within the email. And it's a very, very strong indicator as to how strong your email is overall. So real quickly to go back through that. First and foremost, we want to talk about our delivery rate. So are our emails landing in the inbox? Secondly, we're going to go into our bounce rate. So obviously if the sender isn't, if your delivery rate's low, then your bounce rate's probably going to be high and vice versa, right? Then we go into our open rate. Our open rate is a key indicator. Now, this is called a KPI, so it's a key performance indicator. That makes sense. So if our open rate is low, it means our subject line is probably shit. And this is, I see it all the time. What's a good subject line? What's a good subject line? Pope loves your girlfriend's at my house. It's absolutely beautiful, right? All we're trying to do is get them to open the email. That is all we're trying to do. That is the point of a subject line. It's supposed to give a little bit relevant information as to why they should open the email and make it relevant to them. So we have a high open rate, then obviously we have a good subject line. If you have a low open rate, then you got to test different subject lines. You got to test different subject lines. But if you have a high open rate, then obviously you found something that works for your industry. It's super simple. If it works, keep doing it. If it sucks, change it. Very, very simple, right? And then we finally have our click-through rate, which is click.
Just a second, Seth. What was the open rate for the industry standard?
So the industry standard for the open rate was between 20 and 25%.
Nice.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Super simple, right? And these are super simple. So when you master these 4 KPIs, your delivery rate, your bounce rate, your open rate, your click-through rate, you're not just tracking the numbers, right? Remember, KPIs are not just tracking numbers. What you're doing is you're creating a feedback loop that is based in data. What this allows you to do is fine-tune your approach. It allows you to actually go through and figure out what is working, what is not, and fine-tune your approach for your particular audience and prospects. This allows you to maximize the impact that all of your outreach is going to have. So, final takeaways here. When you measure continuously, you're going to keep a regular pulse on these metrics, and you're going to be able to catch issues a lot easier. Now, remember, in the beginning of this call, we said we're going to measure this off of 100 emails. Why 100? Now, 100 is a good, even number, and most of the time, if you're sending this out to different industries, it's a bit different. You're going to have to bump that number up. But if you're staying in the same niche, again, one niche, one service, right? If you're staying in the same niche, 100 emails is a beautiful way to get data to start looking at what you're doing and is it working. It's a direct feedback loop to you because nobody in the real world, whether it's myself, whether it's Pope, whether it's the courses, is going to be able to tell you exactly what you're doing wrong without that data. That's why the data is super important because every metric is going to tie back to your business outcomes and tie back to your outputs and tie back to your efforts. And all of that translates into actual real success. So you have to iterate this strategy, implement these KPIs, and watch your outreach just blow up into an absolute machine. That's it. Super simple. Pretty simple.
Nice. So you should be able to see the graph that I've drawn there. And this is what you should be doing, right, in your mind. We've given you the industry standard. So let's just say you plot that on a graph, right? Your 4 key performance metrics. Then what you're supposed to do is, I've set 100 emails. This is what those percentages look like on that graph, right? So you can see the red line, got very low delivery rate, got extremely high bounce rate, low open rate, and just a 0 click-through rate. I'm not getting no sales, right? Then the game becomes easy, right? I start to say to myself, the game is, I need to get, number 1, as close to the industry standard as possible, if not beat it. Same with number 2, same with number 3, and same with number 4. And that's the game. That is literally the game in numbers for yourself, right? So every 100 emails I send, I've got to get closer. So let's just say I have what is shown there in the red line. That's what you should call, and I'll just quickly color it in for you, your baseline. The vast majority of you do not have a baseline. You need to figure out what your baseline is on 100 emails. So then what you turn around and say to yourself is, okay, for every 100 emails, how is my baseline compared to the industry standard? Or even compared to yourself. Like, let's just say I'm going to send my next 100 emails and we'll do this one in green, and you work on your delivery rate, right? So Seth, what was the performance that they should figure out when it works in related to delivery rate?
We're talking about the actual numbers?
Yeah.
So it's between 95 and 98%.
Yeah, so 95, 98%, right? So it's quite high at the top, and I've got that written there. So I'm doing my work, I'm going through, and this is for the automators. I'm looking at the different tools there that help with, ensuring that I don't get a high bounce rate, I get a good delivery rate, all these different things that go hand in hand. And after 100, I'm slightly up. Great, right? Look at the game. I've got to try, and remember on the top, I've done like a downward arrow for number 2, which is bounce rate. I want to try and get that lower, right? So where it originally is, so I get it slightly lower. On number 3, I need to get it slightly higher. And let's just say I do get it higher. And then on number 4, I get 1, right? That's my new, sorry for the lines. But yeah, that's my baseline 2.
Yep.
Right? And wherever I've made improvements, I want to keep those improvements, and then I want to continue to make changes. And like I said, the game's simple. I just need to get to industry standard. So somebody's saying, how do I track these things? This is how you track it. Track it manually, right? And for the automators listening, they'll fucking go ahead and create an entire, automated spreadsheet that they can just put in numbers and it just populates it. I mean, it's not that hard. It's just like an Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
Now, in terms of 1 to 4, anyone who's going to ask, how do I figure that out? That's part of the game, right? So someone says, okay, I'm sending 100 emails. I have a pretty decent bounce rate. It's not, really bad. I've looked at a lot of the automation courses and, warming up the email, all that type of stuff. But my open rate sucks. Well, guess what? Like Steph said, one of the very first things we all know collectively as a community is subject line, right? So I need to test different subject lines over 100 emails. And where do I land on this?
Yep.
That is literally the lesson.
Yep. And guys, it's not super complex. Like when we talk about KPIs, it's probably one of the most simple things you're doing. You literally look at what you're doing and you look at what is happening. You're literally just getting the data in a direct feedback loop so you can actually do this, because by consistently tracking and then optimizing these key metrics, what you're doing is you're actually taking out all of the guesswork. You're taking out it all. When you first start, of course, you're gonna have to test things, you're gonna have to try things. There's gonna be a little bit of guesswork. When you optimize and you implement KPIs, all you're doing is making it completely 100% optimized, and you're taking all the guesswork for the email outreach. And this gives you a clear insight into what's working, what needs improvement, and then you can actually target more powerfully and have everything that's results driven. That's huge. It's being results driven. You have to stay committed to refining that approach, learning from your data, and then always aligning your efforts with your business goals. And another nugget here is this can be implemented into every part of the sales process, whether it's emails, calls, inbound leads, no matter what. These KPIs can be implemented and transferred that way, because when you're nailing these metrics down, you're not just sending emails, you're actually owning every conversation, and you can actually you can say, hey, I'm going to get this result because you have data to back this up. When you know your delivery rate, when you know your bounce rate, your open rate, your click-through rate, the game becomes so freaking easy. You just have to get the data first.
Yeah, and I want you to understand, anyone who's asking, well, how do I improve delivery rate? How do I, improve or get my bounce rate lower to the 2%, or whatever question you've got individually on each of these 4 things where email's concerned? That's what I'm trying to say to you. That's the game.
Yep.
That is the game, right? You're literally coming up to me and say, hey, bro, I've just started playing GTA. Can you give me the cheat code that gets me unlimited ammo, unlimited cash, unlimited cars, unlimited everything, unlimited life, right? It doesn't work like that. That's part of the game. Every niche is going to have a different way of doing things. Of course, we've got tools that allow you to do this. And this is where I'm telling you, the conversations that I've seen in, for example, the student classroom on outreach submissions, it's not even there. Like it's so insane that nobody's talking about these things. I can't fathom it. And then over in the AI automation area, right? In AI outreach, like nobody's even talking about KPIs. Nobody's measuring anything. Nobody is like, it's insanity, right? Because look, we're doing this for email outreach, and this is extremely basic, but this is how you should be doing the vast majority of things.
Absolutely. Everything in your life is built off of KPIs, right? We'll take it to the gym to make you guys understand. So when we're in the gym and we're measuring our progress, whether we're losing weight or building muscle, you're going to start at a baseline. So if I weigh, I'm going to say in pounds because I'm in the United States, unlike the weirdos over there using the metric system. If I weigh 200 pounds and I want to lose weight, first I need to figure out what my body fat percentage is. So how much body fat am I at? How much muscle do I have in my body? What is my macros? How much am I eating? What am I eating, right? And then off of those macros, then I can make an effective plan to lose the right amount of body fat every single week if I had a 2-month plan. And then I can also gain the right amount of muscle if I have that right amount of plan. And I can also eat the right things to ensure that happens, right? It's super simple. Once you know what is wrong, you can fix something to make it right. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a nugget and a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of the game. All of these KPIs are directly correlated to something within your email. And the one nugget I'm going to give you is your open rate is directly correlated to your subject line. If your open rate sucks, your subject line sucks. That's it, right? If your click-through rate sucks, it means your email body and CTA sucks. If your delivery rate sucks, it's probably because you don't have a trusted sender, or you're trying to send to some dumbass that just, off the street that doesn't have an actual email, and your deliverability score is going to be low on both ends, right? So how do you get that up? Well, you send more emails. That's how you solve that. Same thing with your bounce rate. How do you get that down? You send more emails. You figure out everything else. But the open rate and the click-through rate are directly correlated to the email body, subject line, and then your email body and CTA. That's it. It's a direct feedback loop for you guys.
And geez, I want you to understand, everybody's heard in a similar way what Seth just said, right? Let's take open rate, for example, and click-through rate, right? You've almost heard, well, if you've got a good click-through rate, that means you've got a good open rate. Yep. But where does that actually derive from? Like who came out with that statement, or where does the logic from that come from? It comes from KPIs, right? Because somebody sat there and went through all these metrics, apart from the obvious that, okay, well, if someone's actually clicking on the link, that means they opened it, right? Apart from that obvious, but if you look at it just from a numbers game, well, it makes absolute sense, right? If I'm hitting 2% then somewhere in the line, someone on the industry standard said, well, if I want to get a 2% click-through rate, then I need about a 20% open rate because that's what the numbers are telling me over 1 million, 2 million emails or whatever it is.
Yep.
Like, you don't understand how powerful this is because we're talking about it just from a measuring perspective, right? Let me put the sales hat on for a second. I think Seth briefly touched on this. Once you have this, it's powerful, especially for automators or anyone in the lead generation game. You lot don't realize just how powerful this is because this is what you would use as your sales or social proof. Let's say I'm going to sell System 3, right? For those of you who don't know what System 3 is, you're just listening in. It's a section in AI automation where we teach you how to create a system that sends out a huge amount of emails using AI, right? Now, if I can use System 3 and I can track this, then what I should eventually get to when I'm trying to outreach to people for lead generation or selling that system, I'm able to turn around and say to them, hey, the industry standard for click-through rate on a person's email is 2%. With the system I use, I get a 5% click-through rate.
Yep.
You literally say that in your email.
Yep.
You've got the results to back it. You've got the data, but you are literally not doing this at all. Like, you're genuinely not doing this because even when I do this for video, which is going to be the next KPI, and there's a few other KPIs we're going to show you how to do. We might even do fitness because I know Seth absolutely loves that. So we might do how you go about, tracking your fitness KPIs and stuff like that. But the concept's the same, right? Because once I know my KPIs, like I know that 80% of people who see this video make it all the way through the entire video, my average view duration, for example. I'm able to say that to my prospects.
Yep. 100%.
Right?
And I just want to make this very well known for you guys. We're talking about 100 emails. So what is a 95% delivery rate on 100 emails? That's 95 emails. What's a 2% bounce rate? That's 2 emails. What's a 20% open rate? That's 20 out of 100. What's a 2% click-through rate? That's 2 out of every 100. Let's expand that times 10 and do it to 1,000. That's 950 delivered. That's 20 bounced. That's 200 opened. And that's 20 that watch your ad all the way through. Most of you guys aren't even getting 1. Imagine if you were to implement these KPIs and actually dial down and dial into what you guys are doing. And if you guys asking in the chats what's a realistic CTR, look on the screen. Literally says the industry standard is 2% when you dial everything else in, right? It's super, super simple.
Yeah. And so some of the AI students who are listening in on this, they're asking like, hey, in the courses, it says don't track because it actually damages certain, I can't remember the exact lesson name, right? But it hurts the campaign. And that is true to some extent. So I've talked to Cam offline. I think we actually had a whole captain call about this, right? When you're first starting out, you should track it. And that's something that we're going to change on the actual lesson. And it's important for you to track it because once you know this, like, by the way, G's, KPIs disappear. Like, I want you to also understand this at a very high performance level, tracking goes out the window.
Yep.
But for the vast majority, why we're presenting this to you, because you don't, like, I swear to God, even my captains, I think I went on a massive rant and then Seth came in and Cam came in and we were just like smashing our captains and we were asking them questions, just basic questions like, hey, you're telling me so many people didn't open your emails or you didn't get a response. Well, okay, what's your open rate? And they didn't even have a percentage. They didn't have a number. And I was like, well, how are you able to say what's happening, what's going wrong? And like I said, we're just primarily talking about email, but this is for everything, G's.
Yep. Yep. You have to have a starting point in order to figure out where to go, right? If you don't know where you are, you're not going to know where you go. So if your goal, for example, let's take one of those metrics. Let's take a delivery rate, for example. If your goal is a 95% delivery rate, but you don't know how many are being delivered straight off the bat, then you have no idea what you need to do to get to a 95% delivery rate. Same thing with bounce rate, same thing with open rate, same thing with click-through rate. You have to have somewhere to start before you know where to go. Dude, Cam is juicy brain, bro.
Yes, Cam already made that change that we were just talking about, which is amazing. So get in the mind frame of tracking. Now, there's a bit of a caveat before we do close the call. Some people turn into circle jerk numbers, tracking, craziness. Don't do that, right? Look how very quickly we just did this, right? It's not something that now it's like, oh, everything's about numbers, because on the flip side to this, you need to be able to make quick decisions, right? So again, you might turn around and say 100's too much. I'm going to go for 10. I'm going to go for 50. I like making changes relatively fast and super quick, more on gut instinct, but I still have some level of tracking going on. So extremely, extremely important. Don't just turn it into one massive number exercise. It's more of a gauge for you to understand what's going on and where you should be directing your improvements. Like if I really had to say the two most important things for KPIs, number one is understanding where I need to focus my energy, right? So whatever that looks like, does that look like in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 emails, up to you? Could be 1,000 emails if you're doing the full like AI outreach. And then number two is saying to yourself, I need this for the future when I try to hit high ticket clients and I really want to talk to them about numbers, and saying to them that, hey, I can do X, Y, and Z better than the industry standard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a big thing is a lot of people don't understand is when you get to those higher ticket clients, right, it's going to take a bit more of the relationship building. And once you build that relationship, you're going to have to make it make sense for them.
Yeah.
Right. So if it doesn't make sense, if the ROI doesn't make sense, if I'm not increasing their click-through rate, which their click-through rate is directly correlated to the bottom line of how many sales they're getting, then it doesn't make sense for them to even talk to me. We're talking about System 3, for example. Or if I'm not increasing their click-through rate, none of the other metrics really fucking matter. But if I have my own case study that I did this, or I increased my click-through rate from 2% to 8%, that's huge. Imagine on a mass outreach of 1,000 emails, that's a 200 to 800. That's huge when we're talking about business side. That's going to increase my bottom line just because we're playing the numbers game at that point. You have to understand that this is how things work. You have to actually figure out and make it relatable to why it's going to increase for your clients and why it's going to increase for you and why it's important to have the data just to be able to actually talk and have that conversation. Because if you don't know that data, you're not even going to be able to have that conversation. You're going to be caught your pants down.
All right, G's, I think that's it. We're going to close up the call. So God bless and peace. Seth, any last words before we go?
Track your shit.